happened now?
I don't know if this is like a legit. I'm just on Twitter.
Sounds fake.
Are you getting fooled? What are you getting fooled with?
Well, I'm following the Q4 earnings call highlights, and one of the highlights with MSTR's earnings call is that they're rebranding from MicroStrategy to Strategy.
There's nothing micro about what he's doing over there.
Right, but strategy is also just like
So vague.
You're definitely not gonna trademark that.
that's like when you go to a restaurant. You're like, "Where are you going tonight?" And they're like, "Oh, we're going to food." Like, what? Yeah, food.
Ever heard of it?
I don't even know. I don't even know this is real. I don't know if we should talk about it.
I wish more things got community notes. I often look at stuff and I'm like, where's the community notes?
Yeah, it should be every time.
I was spreading misinformation. I'm so reliant on them now that if I don't see a community note, I'm just automatically like, "Oh, it's real." Then I just move on, which is probably bad.
That would be a sound check.
Oh.
We did some before, but
Jack, how do we sound? How do we sound?
Audio is F. Oh, great.
Wait, Liz?
Yeah.
Perfect.
You guys sound wonderful in my ears.
That's it. It's no good.
F did what? Way.
well,
Oh, dude, there's no. It sounds like it's come out of the laptop or something. It's the same issue.
Oh yeah, I know this issue.
unplug,
We know this issue.
unplug,
We're
replay.
coming.
Stand by.
Okay.
We did the unplug replay.
I reseated it.
Is that
Give
it?
it a second. I don't know. Keep listening. See if it works.
It literally.
Oh yeah, I know this issue.
Too loud. I don't want feedback. We have to keep talking or else we're not going to know if it's
Oh,
working.
yeah, that's a good point.
Words?
La, 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 la. Words.
No, I don't think it works.
I don't
Not
know.
working?
Good work.
Oh, God.
Damn, we might check before too.
Oh my god. Did we?
Sounds like a construction site. Hold up.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Let's
About
talk.
that episode?
What episode?
Yeah, we should have mics on for this.
Oh, you know what's also great?
What?
For some reason,
save it. That sounds pretty good.
Well, it's related to this, so once we get the mics on,
It's gonna bang.
it's gonna bang.
It's device default, but what is the device in the system?
Put Steven's ass in
For
front.
the sound?
Oh my god.
Oh my.
No, go to. Oh god.
Got a little butt.
My butt's huge, buddy.
I call that normal size. It's,
No, go into system sound.
It's
You know
not
what I'm
big.
saying?
it doesn't. Yeah, it's left leaning.
We need like a technical. Should we just?
It's a pickle butt.
It's a pickle butt.
should I do that?
Go for speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, go back to there.
And
We're back, maybe. Maybe.
Eric, we got cut. I guess we went a little too
We had a good
far.
podcast.
We had a great
Good
podcast.
podcast going.
Style of butt corresponding to sport.
Did that work?
Yeah.
We're not back.
Oh, I
We're
think it
back.
worked.
It worked?
Yeah.
Good job,
I've
Steven.
I saved the day.
Nice job,
Good
boys.
job, boys. Good job.
Oh my
You guys missed
God.
Eric and I's pod about.
Yeah, we did a podcast about Steven's butt.
It was pretty good.
Steven said
If
you
you
had
listen closely,
Steven said you had a small butt.
No, my butt's like fairly large actually. It's pretty known.
40th percentile max.
No. No,
Max.
this butt is definitely a 20th percentile butt.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know.
I don't know. We had a
I
good
don't know.
pod.
But you know what grinds my gears?
People saying your butt's small.
Never heard it. So like, I had some alfalfa, right? I'll just share it. So there's this book I discovered through Naval that I also posted in the parenting channel of the Discord. It's called The Sovereign Child. I forget the name of the author. I think it's Aaron.
Sounds like it was written by
Bitcoiner.
Bology.
No, some guy. I think his name is Aaron.
Whoops.
And Naval was really like promoting it pretty heavily, creating some exposure for it. And then it started a conversation in the parenting channel about it. I haven't read the book, and then somebody posted that, hey, look, the guy you mentioned was on the Tim Ferriss show, and I just listened to the pod, and I was like, okay, I got to listen to this. So it's like a 3-hour long podcast, and I listened to it. But what grinds my gears is like Naval and this guy are on the Tim Ferriss show. It's like tens of thousands of people are listening to you. Can you please use a microphone? Dude, they're talking into their laptops
Oh, I
on a
hate when
show that's
people
going
do
to...
that.
And Naval does
So
this?
annoying.
It's like you're a bajillionaire, dude. And you want to be on podcasts. You want to be Mr. Podcast Guy. Just speak into a fucking proper microphone.
then
so that when I'm in the car,
sometimes
it
the
doesn't
mics don't
sound like
work.
shit.
Sometimes the mics don't work.
Pretty-
No, that's not what it is.
Pretty
They're
grandstandy
they're
coming off
trying
of
to
a technical
say-
difficulty ourselves.
They're trying to say like, I don't need to. Just having me here is enough. It's
think
just
it's
like,
a-
oh fuck
That
off.
could be a
dude.
chip on your own shoulder.
What does that have to do with it?
I don't think that's what they're saying.
What are they saying then? Why can't they speak into a $10 microphone?
I think we've been doing this
Can
for
they
3
throw on some earbuds?
We've been doing this for 3 years, and we're struggling every day.
I don't know.
Yeah,
If you're
but we're
gonna
trying.
be on, yeah, they're not trying. Naval's on podcasts all the time. So anyway, the guy, Aaron guy, same thing. He wasn't speaking into a microphone, so it was very difficult to listen to in the car. The audio quality was bad. However, that topic of the sovereign child, for all the alfalfa moms and dads out there, I highly recommend you check it out. If anything, for a new perspective, it is completely counter to everything I've thought was correct about parenting. And as you might imagine, it's literally about sovereignty maximalism for the child. It is crazy. And you would think like, well, there's so many situations in which that just completely does not make sense. You're going to get hurt if you do X, Y, and Z, or you can't stare at a screen for 14 hours a day. Your brain's going to turn to mush. And his approach is very different with how he deals with those so-called problems, he calls them. And there's always a creative way to work on a solution where you are not like your child's adversary and you're not a gatekeeper to joy. You're someone that they can
Like an
lean
advisor.
on, like an advisor who can make things more fun and more interesting for them. And anyway, it's a 3-hour pod. I think check it out. If anything, what it's done is made me think differently and be open to thinking differently about a lot of parenting things, because there's some very good. The guy's smart. He's thought about it deeply, and he's doing it with 5 kids, four or 5 kids. So, it's interesting.
I downloaded the book when Naval was like posting about it, and I haven't read it either. But to me, it just seems like high risk when the stakes are high, like your child, and to like take on a whole new philosophy seems high risk.
I also have a question. So let's say you have this new philosophy on parenting. Do you have to send the podcast to your wife and be like, I need you to listen to this, and then we need to
I mean, you definitely
see if we're on the
do.
same page, or you just
Yeah.
kind of like roll with it and
No,
start?
you definitely do.
You have to, right?
Yeah, I think there has to be some alignment. But even he discussed, he's like, I'm more sovereignty leaning than my wife, and then Naval was talking about his relationship with his wife and how they differ with their parenting styles. It essentially allows the child to deal with you individually rather than as a unit of set of rules. It's very big on rules. Rules are bad is like a core argument.
Rules are bad.
Very bad.
I don't agree.
Very bad according to
Don't touch the stove. Sounds like a good rule.
yeah. What is the name of?
I like-
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
I like structure for children. But
Yeah,
I
so
got to read this book though.
The author is Aaron Stupple.
What are we drinking today, Steven? I see a fancy name on a wine bottle, and I see some fancy drinks in
Yes,
front
I
of us.
made you all Negronis.
Wow.
Well, not you.
Okay.
'cause you're abstaining.
Abstain.
But for the non-abstainers, we got a Negroni, and we have a Del Dado Pinot Noir.
Oh, this is your one of your favorite wineries.
Yes. Yes. I'm
This
a
is where they
fanboy.
get you drunk.
They get you fucked up at this winery.
It's
Highly
my kind of
recommend.
tasting.
It's my kind of taste.
I just every like couple weeks, it's like a new box arrives with a bottle that I forgot that I bought. You know, I'm like, oh,
It's awesome.
whoops. But this is their Pinot Noir. It's probably my favorite Pinot Noir from Napa. Don't usually like Napa Pinots.
It sounds like it'd be a
This is
fun
like a
alfalfa
Cab
trip
drinkers.
Oh, it'd be
to
Pinot.
go, to
amazing.
go up to this
Caves?
place.
Yeah,
in
they
Napa.
literally get
Oh, we
you
should. It's so fun.
hammered.
Good news,
Amazing.
driver.
And I always happen to be there when David's there. So it's even
Don David
better.
Deldado.
Yeah, Don David.
Oh, Dave. Always there when Dave's there.
I know.
You call him Dave.
Big D.
Big
Big D. as I
Big
call
D.
him.
All right, let's give a shout out to our sponsor. Go to zbiotics.com/alfalfa. Check out Zbiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a nasty toxin.
Acetaldehyde.
Yep. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. So basically, pre-alcohol produces this enzyme that breaks down that byproduct and makes sure you feel a lot better than you normally would if you had a bunch of drinks. And Super Bowl day is coming up. And I bet you if you order now, you're probably going to get your Z-Biotics in
Right.
time for your Super Bowl
Just
party.
on
So if you're
time.
hosting, be a better accoutrement than the Doritos to have some Z-Biotics
No,
laying around for
in
your guests.
addition to the Doritos.
Okay, in addition to your
Please.
Doritos. So yeah, use code alfalfa at checkout, get 15% off. And if it doesn't work for you, don't like it for whatever reason, yeah, they'll give you your money back, no questions asked. Thanks Zbiotics for supporting the pod.
Thank you, Nick.
Hell
We're
yeah.
all going. Are we
I
all
love-
going the same?
I love the what are we drinking Z-Biotics combo. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good ritual.
It's a good ritual. I'm going. That's
Yeah.
my favorite party of the year.
Yeah,
It's a
our
good party.
good buddy, he owns a music venue which has an amazing sound system, and every year he hosts an epic Super Bowl party, complete with low degenerate and high degeneracy squares.
Are you
antsy.
playing $1,000 squares again this year?
No, they were $2,000 squares.
Oh wow! Damn, that is spicy.
Yeah.
It's like 100K for
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Ooh.
I have never won a square in. I think I've been playing this game for like 16 years now.
Well, you're
not
making
a single square.
You're making a mistake. You have to have your girlfriend pick the square. You put the money in.
I'm gonna try
I-
that this year.
This is
Yeah.
weird, right? Because I hate to gamble on anything
Everything,
that isn't
yeah.
like unicorn, fart dust, or fart coin. Or
Yeah, we'll get you.
I
We'll
have-
get you in like 6
but
months.
like
I've seen your
you know,
evolution.
I've played squares 3 times. I've won twice, but I still like hate to do it.
Fuck
I
you.
don't know why.
I skipped our conference in Vegas, so I'm feeling a little gambly.
A little frisky.
Yeah, a little frisky.
Yeah.
I think good time for Super Bowl, even though I could probably care less.
What's your game of choice? You a blackjack guy?
Craps.
Oh, you are a craps guy.
Yeah.
Oh, I had you pegged as a blackjack guy.
He likes it all.
Yeah,
No,
we like
you-
it all.
You got to see Nick at the craps.
He's
table.
good
Does he
Asian.
like come out of his shell?
No.
Nick,
Well, when Armand rolled for 30 minutes, I sure did.
43, sir.
Yeah,
And
43
it was-
minutes.
He even cracked
he
the chuckle.
gets into it.
Yeah.
I like his energy about it.
It's
He's-
fun, 'cause
he's
everyone's playing
dialed,
together.
He's serious.
Yeah, Kraft is
he
the
gives
best.
you a lot of looks, and he's just like, "Fuck yeah, brother! Hell yeah!" And he just keeps shoving, and it's very inspiring.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
got
he
the
gets in the
least take
zone.
from the house if
Yeah.
you play it right.
I love having.
And you're
Nick
just in it
with
for
me.
the streaks.
Yeah, a lot of fist pumping.
We went in, Armand rolled for 43 minutes, took it all out, left a tip, bounced out of there.
What did you estimate the table made?
Oh, table made,
It was a lot.
I don't know, over $100,000.
Remember the Asian guy who was
Yeah, he
freaking
just-
out? He was like a movie
He was
character.
just throwing you like $100 chips.
Yeah, but what was funny about him is it was like we were in Vegas in
Yeah.
a movie, like in our own version of The Hangover. He had like a funny laugh, and his smile was just like
It's Dr. Chow.
Do the-
it was
We're talking
straight
Dr.
up.
Chow.
Yeah, like he bet
my wife will be so happy. Like he was losing it.
he bet all the numbers. Like it's
Yeah.
one specific bet. If you hit all the numbers, it's like 150 to 1.
You hit it.
He hit it.
Oh my
Yeah, he had
God,
all
really?
those
Yeah.
special bets in the top, like all of them.
Yeah,
And he
the,
ca-
the sucker
The
bet.
sucker bets, exactly.
and he hit 2 out of 3 of them.
Oh
3
yeah,
out of 4 of them.
he
Yeah.
hit all small, all tall, and all the numbers.
Oh
So he had
my
150 to 1, like a
God.
50 to 1, a 50 to 1.
Makes you wonder how they stay in business.
Makes you wonder.
Last time I played with Nate.
Oh, how'd that
And,
go?
dude, could not resist the sucker bets. Just loved him. All the sucker bets. But you know how he is. He's like the best time.
Yeah, he's
having
a
the
great
best
time.
Yeah. Doing his whole thing. And we had so much fun.
Yeah, if you play craps, stay away from the middle of the table. All right.
Yeah, I obviously am only just doing like the high expected value stuff.
Good,
Like I
good
don't, I
boy.
don't stray from
Good
the.
boy.
I literally was letting them bet for me. That's how much I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, and then also a rite of passage of craps is when you have your first long roll and you're like, why didn't I make
Yeah.
as much money as everyone else? Because you don't know what's going on. You don't know
what
where
to
the bets
do.
are, and you're just like,
I think I only walked away with like $500. I mean, I say only. It was great for me, but
yeah, it was a
it
good.
was fun.
Pretty good on a $5 buy-in.
Yeah.
We should
Yeah, pretty
we should
much.
make a boys trip to Vegas one time and just like adopt like personas for the whole trip. Like we'll just like
I love that.
You'll be like some
I can bring back the.
Can I wear a suit?
The
I wanna-
French guy. I used to
yeah.
be
You
Nordstrom.
bring out the
French
French guy.
I used to be like a fashionista French guy when I worked at Nordstrom.
Oh my god.
It would sell, man.
What?
Yeah, I would sell suits with
Nick's
a
gonna
French
be a
accent.
kickboxer from
Let's see, where are the kickboxers from? Netherlands?
Netherlands.
Yeah.
Okay, that's I love that for you.
Yeah. All those Netherlands accents, pretty rough.
Just learn like a couple Dutch lines or something, and just really throw people
Wow.
off. No, it'll be a good time.
I love that. You can be whoever you want to be. Wear the mask, Eric.
Yeah.
Speaking of masks, which one are you wearing today? Eric and I were talking about masks and life.
This idea,
Like,
this
the-
idea,
like
that,
in the metaphorical sense.
yeah, this idea that we all play
Identity.
a character, and like with different groups of people, you play a different character, and it's a different kind of mask that you wear with different individuals. But like, how do you get to that authentic version of yourself?
And maybe should you?
And even if you do get to that authentic version of yourself, is that even yours?
Well-
Because like that version of yourself has been shaped by all your externalities, your family, your friends, or whatever.
Like,
It's like
what is the authentic
Well,
self?
some might describe what you described as being charismatic. You're part of a group. They act a certain way. You kind of mirror them. You kind of like not fully change yourself, but you just kind of like borrow certain things when you're around that group, and they find you likable for some reason. They don't really know why. This guy's just, but maybe he's just mirroring their behaviors and language. Like I don't know if you guys notice, like when you talk to someone with like a PhD, like a therapist, and then you talk to like your buddies, your vocabulary might just change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's code
Start pulling
switching.
out like 3
Yeah.
and 4 syllable words, and you're like,
You-
I didn't even
you-
know I knew that word.
You know, you mirror without even knowing it. But actually, if you want to deepen the relationship with somebody, you should mirror them. The more you mirror them, the more trust builds more rapidly. The more they.
But
wanna
then I was
open up to you.
thinking, why don't you just come with your way of speaking, and then they can mirror you, or like it's authentic. To
It
just
is-
like,
it is
here's
two
how I
ways.
speak.
But
you
you're
know,
still
like-
being authentic. Like, let's say I walk into a room and everyone's speaking slowly and softly. It's like I can still be myself, but I'll just speak a little slower and softer because that's what everyone else is doing. You're gonna come in and like raise your face off. Like same when you're cold calling. You just match the tone and pitch of their voice, however they answer, right? But you're still
agree.
yourself.
It's too jarring if you're the loud guy in the room.
I agree,
for
but there's
everybody.
like something that's missing, which is like this this like authenticity. Like you can come into a quiet room and you can be a little louder than everybody, and as long as it's like cohesive with the vibe that you're bringing, and people are just like, oh, that's just Nick being Nick or whatever. Like you know, like they'll also acquiesce to your style.
Yeah, because you don't want to completely lose yourself.
You can't lose yourself.
But there is an aspect of mirroring that is genuine because we're not like one-dimensional people. Like the person I am with you, I'm a different person with other friends.
Sure.
But that's just exposing different aspects of me potentially, right?
Yeah.
That are allowed to come out in that environment. So like we have many dimensions to ourselves.
And I'm talking about the subconscious mirroring, not like, okay, I'm going to walk in the room and I'm going to consciously mirror everyone and I'm going to create this effect. It's like, no, that's
Yeah.
awkward and weird
Yeah.
and
People
slightly
can feel
manipulative.
that.
Yeah.
People can feel
Super
it.
disingenuous.
I mean, that book that I recommended, The Laws of Human Nature, talks about this in insane depth. All of this. It goes into great detail of when to use it, how to use it, why you should use it, how to be authentic, in what ways to stand out, all of it.
Do you guys feel like I'm glad we're talking about this because Armand, you and I were talking about it off air, but like I find this very interesting. Do you find that one of our greatest journeys is to like strip away the mask and like get to the most authentic version of yourself, because that journey sounds pretty interesting to me.
I guess I don't know if do you guys find yourself where you're like, the way I'm acting, I'm not sure it's who I really am? Because I
No.
don't find that question popping up in my head. Like,
Well,
is
it
there-
would pop in your head. I think if you start like mirroring others, you're like, well, that's not me. Like, what's you? You know?
Well, this reminds me of a conversation we had on the pod, which was about people's regrets at the end of their life. And we looked at that list of like 4 things, and I think most of us agreed that like one of them was like, I didn't live a life always that was authentically true to myself. And a lot of people have this feeling that they're often wearing a mask for others when they don't actually really genuinely want to. That's a problem. That's where I see a problem. Like if you wear a mask because you wear a different version or a costume character in different environments, I think that's completely fine. The question back to you, Eric, is like, is it all about going down to like what's fundamentally true for you, and how do you know what is fundamentally true? Was that just what you think you are because your parents told you good boy
Sure.
when you did certain things and you were positively rewarded or negatively, punished for certain things? And you might ask yourself, like, are there parts of me that are missing because I received so much negative about certain aspects of myself that have diminished, that have like not had an opportunity to blossom? Actually, the Sovereign Child talks about this a lot. The author, he's like,
Way to bring
what
it
you
back.
do when you overly live, when you don't allow children to be like, when you don't treat them seriously. The whole movement is about taking children seriously, ultimately. And when you don't do that, you begin to like diminish true characteristics that they have, and they lose those things over time. And so there's probably a lot of things that we have that we've forgotten to even
I feel like I've forgotten a lot. I actually feel this. I've forgotten a lot of my
core nature.
core. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because like as you grow older, you just like take on these other responsibilities and whatever. And I feel like if I didn't have those, I would probably be like a much more like carefree, and I don't know. Like
So I think that question you asked, I think is important. I think that's like the journey that every person is on to a certain degree. Jung calls this the process of individuation. And you go through this cycle of like uncovering areas of your life where you've been shaped unconsciously by things around you that you didn't intend to really bring into your assortment of things that build up your character. And so the process of individuation can be very painful as you go through it in life, but eventually you are aiming toward a direction that is more true north of who you really are. I think it's a great journey.
I think it's the most incredible journey is to like re-find it. Like over time, you're naturally gonna be molded by your surroundings, but to like re-find yourself is,
how do you do that? You have to go in solitude for weeks at a time?
I don't know. Like the saga continues for me, but I think like you guys know me better than the audience. I think the audience knows maybe like a professionalized version of myself, which is like I talk about stocks and stuff. But I think like you guys know that I'm like a pretty like playful, carefree,
Yes.
free-spirited dude. If I were to like remove the externalities, but that's not like what is presented.
This is not like a professional take, like someone who studied it, but I had a friend kind of go down like a meditation path, spiritual path, and spend a lot of time meditating, doing these like retreats. And he said that like at some point you arrive at a place where the answer is it's okay. And everything's okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's okay.
That is the final answer.
Yeah, and so I don't know if it's related to like stripping down to your core, but he said he put a lot of work in, years of doing it. Had like, I don't know what you call them, monks as a advisor, help him through this path. And then he's like, I think I got to equanimity, like this place where I should be. And like, he's like, well, what do you think about it? He's like, this word, it's okay, just kept popping up. He's like, you got it.
I almost feel like that is as profound as this too shall pass. It's like it's okay.
I should mention what I mentioned to you because I think if anyone finds this topic interesting, Guy Ritchie was on Joe Rogan, and there's this clip I saw. It's called "You Must Be." It's called "You Must Be the Master of Your Own Kingdom," So it's just a clip you can find on YouTube from him on the Rogan experience, and it's phenomenal. It's like a 13-minute clip, and the guy is way deeper and way more interesting than you can tell from his movies the guy's really fucking smart and talented, but fascinating, and it's directly related to this topic, and it's related to basically like the hero's journey, his version of the hero's journey that he believes is the theme of every story that he's told in all his movies, all the way back to the most ancient mythological stories.
You can always tell a
really
Guy
good.
Ritchie movie within like 5-10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. His movies are so good.
Because you can't understand the dialogue.
Yeah. You like Dags? All right. This first topic, Eric, is kind of right up your alley. I want to talk about sports.
Oh,
This,
Oh,
Before
Joe.
we do that, would anybody like a Negroni top up?
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
good.
I'm good.
This
You have
man
a
needs
second
some-
one right here.
This is but it's a communal Negroni.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, top me, daddy.
Oh, I see what you did. That's like the. Wow.
Very nice.
Very thoughtful, Stephen.
Thank you, sir.
So
I would like to say it was thoughtful, but I just forgot that you told me not to make you one, and I made it anyway.
I told
And I
you
was
like 3
"Ah,
seconds
it's a
before
communal."
you poured it.
You literally told me, and then like 4 seconds later, I forgot, and I made it.
This man is
Which
goldfish.
just, I am not well.
All right, Eric. Explain the. Well, actually, Armand, if you can, put that up on the screen. So this is we got up on the screen a Moneyball meme. If anyone's read the book or seen the movie, and it's what's the actor's name? Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill's up in front of Brad Pitt, and he's like, "Billy, this is Luka Doncic. He's a top 5 player in the NBA and can be an all-time great. His defect is that he gets a little chunky sometimes. This guy should cost our entire roster and 10 first-round picks, but we can get him for just Anthony Davis." So, Eric, was this like a monumental trade in Sportsland?
Oh, man. Yeah, this is right up my alley because I love sports. I love the Lakers. I think I'm still processing. Luka Doncic is one of 2 players on earth to average 25, 7, and 7 in his first few years of the league. The other one is also in the Lakers, LeBron James. Like, this is insane.
Yeah. And they traded him for Anthony Davis. I heard his nickname is Anthony Day-to-Day Davis. Does he get injured a lot?
They also call him street clothes.
Street clothes because he's never playing.
I mean, they won a championship a couple years ago, like
Right.
with Anthony Davis and LeBron James, so he's pretty fucking good too. I think there's a lot of speculation that this trade has some like tinfoil associations with it.
Me and Steven saw one. You saw another. What was the one you saw?
Okay, one I saw. This is from Dwayne Wade, LeBron's former teammate and like Hall of Fame shooting guard. Said the NBA is a global brand now, and Luka Doncic is the most marketable European in the league, and they want the most marketable European in the largest market in Los Angeles with like the most storied franchise.
I feel like that's lame tinfoil.
why is that tinfoil?
Well, that there's like collusion around like that the Lakers should be winning.
Like you, and
I think it's very tinfoily. I think the idea that like the NBA they like coerced this trade to get him on like a marginally more brandable team.
Like let's just be clear too. Like the Lakers were a competitive team with Anthony Davis. Like the Lakers made it, I think, to the Western Conference Finals like 2 years ago. Like with this roster with Anthony Davis. So like the Lakers are taking risk as well. But I think like when you trade a 32-year-old star for a 25-year-old star who's probably even better,
big win.
it's a big win.
Well, your tinfoil might play with the one we saw. So we saw this one. I guess Las Vegas Sands, the casino company, owns the Mavericks, and the thought behind it was essentially that they're tanking the team on purpose, and they want to tank it so bad so that they could propose to the NBA that they're going to move the NBA team to Vegas so that they can get leverage against the city of Dallas and the state of Texas to put a casino in the stadium and probably other,
Yeah,
Now
build them
that is tinfoil.
to build them like a
That's some good tinfoil.
redevelopment
I like
area.
because they bought it, and I guess the state of Texas has denied their efforts to
Yeah.
to try to monetize the stadium into, which was probably their whole investment thesis was like.
Kind of like a spite trade. I mean, the trade felt like spite.
So I think they've
kinda
literally
weird.
made movies about this exact plot. It's like the plot of Major League.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it's
Is
the Cleveland Indians baseball
Dude,
team.
it's been so
Ooh,
long
I
since
liked that movie.
It's
Yeah,
with
it's
like Charlie Sheen, right?
Classic.
Yeah, it's
90s.
like
Oh, that is a.
epic movie.
I didn't know that was the plot. I just
What's
remember all
the
the
name of his
scenes.
character in that movie?
Oh God.
Wild Thing.
Wild Thing.
Wild
yeah.
thing, but I forget his real
Yeah.
name. Yeah.
I forget how many followers they lost
They don't make movies
on
like that
Instagram
anymore.
instantly. Obviously, the fans are upset.
Oh my god.
So-
dude, could you imagine?
I would be livid if I was a diehard team and you just traded our best player that got us to the finals.
Okay, before we start evaluating these conspiracy theories, I have one more for you.
Okay.
The GM of the Mavericks was a guy who, the GM of the Mavericks consummated this trade with the GM of the Lakers. The GM of the Lakers was like Kobe Bryant's agent, okay? And he's like famous for that, and that's how he got this job. But I think when Rob Pelinka, who was Kobe Bryant's agent, this GM of the Mavericks was like working on the staff in some kind of like managerial role. So they like work together. They have a working relationship where they're like friendly with each other. And when you look at what they're talking about, they didn't shop this trade around. Like this trade went 1-to-1, GM to GM, and it wasn't like the league bid on Luka Doncic. It was like Rob Pelinka did.
So you're saying he's like a plant for the Lakers, essentially,
That-
potentially.
that's
Oh,
another
That's some
conspiracy
long
theory.
game Chinese shit right there.
Yeah.
I like that.
Wow. I mean, the guy would have to be willing to take a fall in his like biggest come up ever. He's reached the pinnacle of his career. He's the GM of an NBA team, and he's like, I'm going to tank it on
Yeah,
purpose.
is his career like over at
Has
this
he
point?
has he provided like some kind of logic behind this trade?
Only that he says, I will be judged based on the outcome of this, and like I could have done nothing, and you guys would have been proud of me for doing nothing. But I'm making a trade here. Like I'm taking action. I think our team wants to be like defense focused. Defense wins championships. Anthony Davis is one of the best defenders on earth, and we want him, and we want to build this defensive culture. And like I'm putting my stamp on this team.
All right, False says that's definitely what happened, Eric. That's why it went down in secret. Also, Doncic is due for a huge contract extension coming up, and he only has a couple good years left before he injures his way out of the league.
Well, there's this other element of it too, where it's like there could be no funny business going on whatsoever. You could look at Luka Doncic himself. This is one of the best players of all time. He's 25 years old, but he's also ballooned to
Yeah.
270 pounds. He doesn't have like the work ethic of a bona fide superstar, I think is what people are saying. And there might be something to that. Like if you have like insider knowledge on a guy's work ethic, like you are his manager, like you might want to
Even
sell
if that were true, they could have gotten like way more for him.
yeah, good point.
So even if like the Mavs GM is like kind of a gigabrain, he's also not.
right, you could shop that deal around.
Yeah.
Don't just go to Rob Pelinka.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right, good input from the chat. I just wanted to explore that one. Sounds like a little business take.
I think like the last thing I want to say is you guys don't follow sports the way that I do. I follow a lot of sports that suck, and I think a lot of sports fans can like resonate with this when your team is just like constantly sucking. That's like what San Diego sports are, but in San Diego we don't have like a basketball team, so we always got like the Lakers games on TV. So I have been a Lakers fan my whole life. Being a fan of a team that like constantly gets the best player and is like constantly winning is so fun. It's just so good. Like
As a Patriots fan, I
you understand.
I understand
Yeah.
what it feels like to just win all the
Just to
time.
win is so good.
It's great.
my goal this year
It's so great.
is for each of you to generate some affinity either to a Formula One team or a specific Formula One driver.
Okay, which one should I fair weather fandom?
Let's see. You like
I
young
think
guys.
the one I liked got relegated, right?
Oh, you liked
Yeah.
Esteban Ocon.
Yeah.
No, he's
I
got.
liked him too.
He's going to the American team, Haas.
He is?
Yeah,
Oh, they suck.
He got
All right,
traded,
back in.
basically. Yeah, good work ethic.
like
I
him.
watched some Drive to Survive, and I was like, all right,
Yeah, watch it.
Max Verstappen, I got it.
Okay, I
Done.
could see that for you.
I mean, yeah, he's a killer.
Yeah.
I think
Easy.
you should
Easy choice.
check out this rookie. He just turned 18, or Kimi Antonelli.
Oh, up and comer.
Yeah, he took Lewis Hamilton's spot on Mercedes,
What?
and he's
Oh, 'cause
he's
he
got
went to-
like
Lewis
the
went to
highest
Ferrari?
expectations. Yeah, Lewis went to Ferrari.
Uh-huh.
Anyway,
Wait, can I ask you one more thing about the NBA?
Yeah.
Do you have a take on the idea that they might shorten the quarters?
Yeah, I think like the NBA has like systematic problems. You know, like first of all, fandom's decreasing. That's your first problem. But this is like a non NBA specific thing. MLB is seeing the same thing. I think the NFL is going to see the same thing when like people like stop playing
Bro,
so much.
I stopped watching the NFL because I was like, it is in my mind like just too fucking slow of a game for like the modern world. It's just like they
As a
score a
soccer
touchdown.
fan, it's wild to me. You sit there for 4 hours and you see 30 minutes max of like game.
Yeah, no, soccer.
Actually,
yeah,
soccer
not
is
30 minutes,
soccer
way
is the
12
only
minutes.
game that has like
12
some durability
well,
in the modern world. It's just
way
like they
less.
play the game. The game is over relatively quickly. There's like nonstop. It doesn't, and then you're good.
the
Yeah.
NFL is like an over monetized YouTube
It's a
channel. You're like,
fucking
why are there
joke, dude.
like mid roll ads every 30 seconds?
It's like
They
the play
score,
lasts 7 seconds.
They
Yeah,
like
I'm gonna
go to
the
commercial
bathroom.
break. They come back. They kick the ball off. Commercial break again. Like you can't go to a commercial break immediately after the kickoff. That's just not cool.
I don't.
I
can't
totally
do it.
agree, and I think that all these sports are sort of under fire. But to your exact question of the NBA, like reducing the quarter length down to 10 minutes instead of 12, I think it's just like one of the possible solutions. I don't think it is the solution. Like what I think what people are sort of like not enjoying is the fact that like the league has turned into everybody's shooting 3-pointers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like
that's the
you
big
try to
thing.
get fouled to go to the free throw line, which is freaking boring.
Yep.
And then you shoot free throws and 3-pointers.
As a blue collar basketball fan, I'll tell you what I think it is for me. Too many fouls.
Yeah.
Like MJ days were way more interesting. Not having a real MJ type figure, I think, is also a detriment. I know people love LeBron James, but I just don't think he does it for me in the same way. I think you need like a global icon superstar, like a Kobe or something, to really.
I've read a lot of takes on what the NBA can do. The one take that I put the most credence into is Bob Fulgaris, who is like
oh, dude, he's the goat.
he's like a gamble. He's basically like Steven Cesaro turned into like NBA GM.
Bro, he was in the 2+2 poker forums like back in the day when I was playing online poker.
So he started
he's
as
a
a
legend.
sports bettor,
Okay.
and was so good at sports betting that the Mavericks hired him, and like was essentially
Such a good story.
became GM
Yeah.
of the team.
Holy
he was
shit.
like not in name, but like was essentially like making the trade.
Probably
Like a Bill
like,
James
literally
of-
a
Yeah.
billionaire at this point from Bitcoin and sports betting and like being like a goat, like
Yeah,
NBA
so
dude. It's
the
like
Bill James of basketball, and he's still like young and leads like a pretty cool life, I think. But his take was like, just bring the physicality back to the game,
Totally.
allow hand checking, don't call these like
Dude, it's
ticky tack
so
fouls, and that will
lame.
like make the game way better.
It's so lame. If I
agree.
turn it on for 5 minutes, I get frustrated. I'm like, dude, they can't do anything, and they're all looking for the foul because
Yeah.
they know they're going to get
Faking it, look, yeah,
It's just so lame.
It's annoying.
It's so lame. And then
move
there's
the
too much
3-point
scoring.
line back.
There's actually too much scoring.
I actually think the 3-point line can stay as long as you like allow defense to defend. Like
Yeah.
defense isn't allowed to defend anymore because
So
it's
you're
always
not
called a
going to
foul.
drive. You're not going to go in the paint. You're just going to get a foul. And then now people. It's also like the what was the guy that broke the 4-minute mile? Roger. What's his name? 4-minute mile. Roger.
You said
Moore?
Roger, and I wanted to say Ailes, and that's definitely not correct.
Once you had a Steph Curry, well, that made people realize like what was possible. And so I think the
Yeah,
training
true.
adapted to like become a better shooter.
Shoot 43%.
It's
from
just
three-point
it's
line.
just it's just too many threes. I totally agree with that. It's too many threes.
All
Sounds
right, boys.
exciting.
You just want to talk a little trade world war?
Yeah, baby.
Let's talk about it. So most people saw the news, and if they didn't see the news, they saw it in their portfolios. But yeah, Trump let some tariffs rip. He put a 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada. Didn't see that in my bingo card initially. And then a 10% tariff on China. And he also got rid of this Section 321 loophole, which we'll talk about too. But with these tariffs, we can go a few different ways. Like we could just see like what's the outcome of them. But he's quickly pulled the tariff on Mexico and Canada back with some negotiations. So are we seeing the art of the deal?
Can we talk about some of the meta? So it's the thing that's grinding my gears most about the tariffs is like I log in, Trump puts on these tariffs, and suddenly like everybody comes out of the woodwork and they're just like, "Duh, tariffs are bad," and it's just such like all these like very like basic bitch takes, right? It's just like, oh, as though this is like a simple problem, just and it turns like lefties into these like suddenly they're like disciples of Milton Friedman and they like love free trade but like the main thing that was annoying me is like everybody like speaking on like so much authority is like this is just like an obviously bad thing and it's terrible and like I saw like 400 Adam Cochran tweets this weekend. Like it's like the guy was just tweeting like every
Give me your phone. I'm gonna
6
mute
Wait,
him
seconds.
hold
for you.
on. I actually muted him, I guess, because I haven't seen one.
I
in a
need to
long
mute him.
time.
It was unbelievable. Like when these tariffs went into effect, it was just like Canada, like just nonstop, and it's just like it's obviously not that simple. Like I don't know how much you've nerded out on tariffs. Like you probably have a little bit, got into the weeds of it. It is not a simple thing. It's not like tariffs are bad and orange man. It's not that simple. It's just not that simple. So if like that's your take and you're just like spouting that off, like just declaring that, just being like, yep, that's it. You're fucking dumb and I'm smart. Like it's just I don't know why people do this. Like it's obviously a complicated
It's a
issue.
good place to start.
We got that
I'm
disclaimer
actually
out of the way.
Yeah, I feel like I'm actually really curious about the topic because I haven't done a deep dive on it. So what is your perspective on the nuances?
So, like, one of the things people point out immediately is that, like, well, free trade is better for everybody involved. And, like, I agree with that. Like, we want to live in a world where if a particular country is, like, really good at producing one thing and another country is good at producing another thing, that we have, like, the free flow of goods and everybody's better off, right? Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. Because, like, as Milton Friedman pointed out, like, years ago, like, if you wanted to go make, like, a pencil by yourself, no, you're fucked. You can't make a pencil. Like nobody could make anything. We'd be just like cavemen, which is what we used to be. So the free flow of goods across borders is like all other things being equal, like very good. The problem is that like all other things are not equal. And it's not that simple, right? For example, one of the things people talk about with tariffs is they're like, oh, tariffs are inflationary. And just people just say this. It's like, oh, tariffs make inflation higher. A couple things on that. Like one, yeah, like you can kind of see how if you enact tariffs, like the price of goods might go up, right? But inflation is like a persistent year over year, month over month thing, right? If you have like a one-time adjustment and stuff, and then it just levels off, is that really inflation? I don't know. The other complexity with this is that like we have like a dollar-based trade system around the world. Like everybody is on the dollar. So tariffs change the strength of the dollar. Like when we tariff other people, like the dollar goes up, right? So when people are like, oh my God, people in the US, we're not going to be able to afford everything. Well, actually, some of that gets canceled out because the dollar goes up. So there's like all this complexity of like the interaction of like what happens with the value of various currencies. How much does that offset it? But then like, the main thing here is that there's an extreme asymmetry in the effect that tariffs have on us versus like everybody else in the world.
This is the most important thing to me.
Yeah. Like the United States economy is incredibly flexible. We make a lot of stuff like here. We're just like, we can pivot to all sorts of places. And our economy is diverse in terms of like, versus like somebody like Canada, right? They are very reliant on the U.S. Like one of the major exports Canada has, right, is energy. It's like oil and stuff. And a lot of the reason that like we buy a lot of their oil, it's not because they like us and they're friends and they cut us a deal. It's because there are like logistical reasons why like they can't actually get that anywhere else. Like there is like difficulty in processing it. We buy a lot of it at like a particular like discount because that there's like pipelines. There's all these reasons why like they're actually like quite dependent on us. Like same with Mexico. Like there's like a huge imbalance in like how much we need them versus they need us. And like we have like incredible amounts of leverage. So I don't think I think Trump is sort of directionally correct in that like we aren't being treated fairly on the world stage when it comes to trade. But I think it's an even more interesting question of like, should our goal just be as a country to just fairness?
Or to win.
Or should we be like, hey, the world's kind of falling apart. Maybe we should just get a better deal for ourselves. Well, like, it's not like everybody in the U.S. is thriving. It's not like we don't have homeless people. It's not like there's no poverty here. It's not like everybody's like being educated and everything is like hunky dory. Is it actually optimal for us to go beyond fairness? Like, why shouldn't we actually like take like a couple steps more and like actually pressure people and get better deals than like what is sort of quote unquote fair? Because we have so much leverage. That's like the thing. Like, I'm wondering aloud. Was I mad when we tariffed Canada? Like, no, that didn't upset me at all.
Were you mad when Trudeau was like, "And we will do it back"?
Good
No, that was like hilarious. It was just like it's like trying to say like 2 + 2
Wrong
equals
response,
6. You know?
in my opinion.
No, it was weird. Like, he had there were no cards there.
ineffective.
It's
Yeah.
like obviously
That's not the
zero
card.
leverage. Like
wouldn't have done
the
that.
play was like you had two guys. The play was to be the first one to be like, "I'm so sorry, Mr. President." Just be like the first guy like over the
Yeah.
boat. Like, just
Yeah, I
dive
mean,
in.
I kind of think of it in the same terms you do. Like, at the base level, do you want free trade in general? Yes. And then what prior administrations have been arguing on is like, well, let's argue for fair trade. Like, let's make sure you use the same labor practices that we do, and try to like work on that. And maybe they would talk about trade deficits, which I don't think are that big of a deal. But then where I think we are now is like, okay, we got ace king suited. We have a good hand. Should we leverage it to get other things unrelated to fair trade that we have? And I feel like that seems like what Trump's obvious goal is, because this wasn't some super planned out thing coming in phases. And I'm still confused on the stated goal. In some cases he talks about we're subsidizing countries, talking about the trade deficit. We buy more of their stuff and they buy of ours. And then he talks about fentanyl and
Illegal immigration.
And then illegal immigration. So which is it? Is it all three? It's okay if it is, but I'm not clear on what the goal is. And maybe you don't want to say the goal as you're in this like open air
that's definitely
negotiation. And I could
That's
see that
definitely the
too.
thing.
So I was also thinking this.
Smoke screen.
I was thinking this, like Canada and Mexico, we have the leverage. Let's negotiate what we want. What do we want? It seems like what we want is fentanyl and immigration. We got that immediately. But then you have the China policies as well. Was this all just a way to like have a tariff on China in a way that just like says like, no, we're doing it on a lot of these people, but also China.
Like we mentally anchored to 25% and then just handed them a 10
but
percenter.
Here's 10% for you, but this is like what we wanted actually is like 10% on China.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things we probably want from China. There's probably a list of like 10 things we want, and they just want Taiwan. So I'm sure there's a deal to be made down the road.
I think we want like two things at the end. Like I came around to the idea quickly that the fentanyl thing, that's not what this is. Obviously, it's like
Okay.
40 pounds of fentanyl coming in. And yes, it is true that 40 pounds of fentanyl can like kill like 10 million people, which is crazy.
10 million doses.
But there's still it's like a 1,000-to-1 ratio coming in like over Mexico versus Canada. So it's obviously not that. I think that's like a smokescreen for something else. But I think he does genuinely want like some reshoring of like American industry for sure. Like there's obviously like a particular subset of the country that he's like sort of singled out to like really like improve their lives.
Yeah,
And-
even from like 8 years ago. That's like what do you talk
and
to?
like this is kind of like one of the shitty things I think about tariffs. Like I am still like kind of a free market guy, and you are very much just like picking winners and losers in the market to a degree when you are enacting tariff policy. You're like, oh, this industry is going to win and this industry is going to lose on a relative basis. So that's like a little weird, but like he has like sort of singled out this sort of like, group of people who are his supporters or whatever, and they are like the group of America that has gotten kind of fucked, over the last couple decades. So I also kind of get that. But I think the other thing that we want besides like the onshoring of the reshoring of manufacturing is like we want people to like buy our debt. Well, specifically like the longer term paper.
Okay.
That was like one of the things I wanted to ask Nick is when you brought up the trade deficit. so like the trade deficit, I always interpret it as being a good thing. Like we give you our paper,
Agreed.
you give us your goods.
Yep.
And your goods are awesome, and you make them cheaply, and we spend cheap dollars on it, and we give you IOUs essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I never really cared about them. When I saw politicians talk about them, I'm like, who cares? Who cares about trade deficits? But I think Trump may be thinking like a business. Like, we're sending you all this money, and you're only sending us a fraction of that. And I think part of it could be like, I don't know, I got the screw to tighten on Trudeau. Let's just see what he comes to the table with. Like, I'll turn the screw on. I'll get him on the phone. What do you got? And he's like, I got 10,000 people I can send to the border. I got this, this, and this. And it's like, okay, I'll take that for now. And then we'll see.
Yeah, 30 days.
Yeah, 30 days.
Yeah, because that's what it was. It wasn't like we're good. It was like 30 days.
Let's see if it actually does it. But let's assume his plan is to like bring jobs to America, and re-industrialize the country, right? This is where like I don't see his actions like really bringing that forward, and maybe this is like step 1 of like 100. But in order to do that, businesses need a few things to, like, let's say we, instead of buying goods from China, we wanted to build a factory. You need certainty, I need to know what's going to happen in order to make a very significant investment. And I need to know what's going to happen over a long period of time. The second thing is you need time to react. You're not like, hey, in 2 days, this is going to go up, and you might die before you even have the chance to, make this investment. And then third, you need like a stated goal and a plan. And so he's got this like trigger mechanism, like changing the incentives, right? But he doesn't necessarily have a plan to reindustrialize. Like, the plan to reindustrialize America can't just be like tariffs. And I did find one tweet. This guy I follow for e-commerce. His Twitter handle is Sean Ecom. He owns a company called Ridge. They make wallets. I bet you there's pretty strong crossover between our audience and his company, so I imagine some of you guys might know it. But he talks about a plan. He says, one giant automated mega factory is awesome, but if you want 100 good factories, you need about 10,000 shitty ones barely figuring it out. The CHIPS Act is great, but we need a shit act. Seriously hire, invest, and train. And he proposes $10 billion in 0% interest loans to start new factories in 10 million blocks only. So tiny loans. Start paying back when you get to 10 million in revenue is like a very simplified thing. So, that's one option. You could have other options, but he hasn't come with like, okay, so we're going to do the tariffs, change the incentives, and then we're going to provide this like, system to fuel that fire,
Yeah, I was sort of in the impression that like you didn't believe that was like our path forward. But I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago or last week. I asked you like, so are we going to onshore? And you said no, because like the difficulty of doing that is like so much more profound than you'd imagine.
Yeah, but this is where I agree with that, because you don't need Fox. He mentions Foxconn in his tweet. You don't need 2 Foxcons in here. You need 10,000 factories that make every little thing that you see in this room.
So these are all $10 million widget producers.
Yeah, so start up, incentivize 10,000 mom and pop, CNC machining companies, and that can make every little widget.
I think your
in town.
concern is also that it's going to take too long.
It will, but like I'm saying, along with the tariffs, you got like the stick, and now you need the carrot to go with it to like get everyone in motion, and you need a timeline, right? Like time to react. And some kind of certainty.
Incentives.
Yeah, and so maybe that's his
happen.
plan later down the road. Like, hey, I'm just gonna, get some concessions out of these countries, but there needs to be something else.
When you look at the world moving more toward this isolationist movement, it makes sense to get ahead of this, because while it might appear that America is dictating terms and trying to be progressive about moving toward this, it could just be that this is a fact of like the nature of the global system right now. Like the rest of the world has also showed us that borders are closing, free trade is decreasing, people are becoming more reliant on their resources and what they can do in a world that's going to become more separate. And so America might just be reacting to that and getting ahead of it. And you got to think about it and say, like, would we want to be left behind? No, we wouldn't. And so we need to invest into the future of being able to do a lot of these things independently.
Is that in your mind, the game theory of the China component of the tariffs is like just bringing manufacturing back and getting ahead of that wave? Or because like I kind of get the the local ones more. But
I
like
think there's a clear signal here that the next decades ahead look like that. Yeah, and I think it's important to get ahead of it, not be in a reactive mode, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
We've been living in a free trade world, in a global system, and for whatever reason we could dissect for hours, that's shifted. That has clearly shifted.
yeah. I hope it's to reindustrialize. Like that could be a noble aim of these tariffs, but I don't think it is. I think he's just playing art of the deal, and
Well, he's definitely playing art of the deal, but it's unclear
What
to what
the-
larger
and
outcome.
and you could argue that like it's kind of going well so far.
And I have
Like
to say, I think that the deal making art aspect of this is very interesting.
So I got a tweet from Jim Bianco up. He says he got 20,000 foreign troops and hundreds, if not billions of dollars to protect U.S. borders from drug flows that kill more people than auto accidents and illegal immigrants that cause tens of billions, not to mention thousands of murders. Oh, I think he's saying the legal immigrants cost tens of billions and then
And-
it
yeah,
also thousands of murders.
Yeah.
So he's doing a pretty good job. I think
and that's like something that he enacted in the first few days of his administration. Like, this is pretty epic.
yeah, throw this tweet up. This is from Santiago Capital, old Brent Johnson from our Dollar Milkshake episode. But he said, so far tariffs and other threats have failed to get Colombia to take back its citizens, failed to get Mexico to help secure the border, failed to get U.S. detainees back from Venezuela, and failed to get the Panama back under U.S. control. What a disaster this is turning out to be. Obviously being facetious, but, you know, if that's his only goal, he's probably doing a pretty good job at it. He's obviously calling some emotional volatility inside of business owners over a weekend, but kind of good results so far if he's just going to play like a short-term game.
It's just like fascinating to see somebody who's not like shackled by like the norms of bureaucratic governance
It's so
to just go in
fascinating.
and do stuff, because
It's
you got
so
like him
fascinating.
and Elon doing stuff now, and there's like a lot of people like, no, you can't buy Greenland, no, you can't take back the Panama Canal, no, you can't tariff, and they're just like, why not?
Right.
And like, you know, like I don't know if all these things are good. I don't know, but like the very fact that like people are going in and just sort of stress testing this system we've built over so many decades that like clearly isn't working. It's not like everything's like amazing. We're like, no, don't break the thing that's like working so well. It's like, yeah,
I think
fuck it. Let's see what happens.
I think what makes people uncomfortable is he actually is a bit of a dictator. Like he operates like someone who's like the executive branch to him comes with more power. He assumes more power than anybody ever has.
I strongly disagree with this take.
Maybe you're okay. What do you?
Okay. So the idea that like he is, when Obama was president, right? The Republicans were like, "Oh my God, Obama is a dictator," right? And the reason a lot of Republicans were like, "Obama is a dictator," was because Obama was vastly expanding the powers of the executive branch. And really for the entirety of the last century, like Congress has just sort of delegated more and more and more and more and more authority to the executive. And just,
Wars are a great example.
yeah, like the fact that like we just go to war now, there's like, we won't vote on that shit anymore. That's like this like thing of the past, right? So the idea that Trump is a dictator, he's simply like it's like, okay, so a lot of these agencies are a good example. So we have like Elizabeth Warren, like she creates these agencies and stuff, and they create them so that they're like outside of like the purview of Congress, and they're just these things that run under the executive, right? And you expand the power of the executive. So when a guy comes in and just uses the system you created and is like, oh, I have purview over all of this shit, and now I'm just going to exercise the power that you literally gave me.
Just so we're clear, that's what I just said. That's what I'm saying. That he's coming in and he's seeing what is possible, and it might feel to people that don't like him that he's being very dictatorial about it. But all he's really doing is exercising full authority more than every other person had. Like, we agree. I think that's exactly what he's doing, and I don't think that's a negative thing.
Okay.
I think he's exercising his rights to do it. I don't think he's necessarily overstepping. Again, I'm not in the nuances.
Okay, we agree. Like, I don't think he's doing
do
anything,
agree.
quote unquote, more than any other person.
When I say the word like dictator, to me it's like I think that's a concern that people have because they think that he's overstepping. But if you really look at the situation, these are all things that a good CEO would do. They would just show up and get shit done. And we haven't had someone in the executive branch who got this much done in the 2 weeks that he's been there, many times in 2 years. And to me, I look at that and I say, why? Was there a lack of capability and power that the executive branch had? And you look at that and you say, no, everything he's doing so far is within the bounds of what's possible. He's fully exercising the capabilities that he has.
Jon Stewart had a good rant about this, like ripping Democrats for using the dictator and the authoritarian tropes. Everything is not like Nazi Germany. He's like, no, he's actually not done nothing illegal. And he's like, you keep saying it's a constitutional crisis. Why don't we wait until he actually violates the Constitution? And then you can yell and scream and we'll actually believe you instead of yelling and screaming every four minutes.
Yeah, if the guy started talking about like unlimited terms and things like that, we could start to say, okay, dude, like what the fuck are you doing? And there was some congressman that was like pushing the third term thing on like the first day. But anyway, that was a tricky one. Did you guys see that? It was hilarious. The third term thing.
I don't want that.
It was like, if you didn't serve 2 terms in a row, you can do a third term. Yeah. It was like specifically written for Trump. I was like, fuck off.
That's just a guy trying to get some headlines.
Yeah, it was a full fuck off.
I mean, we'll get back to the tariffs in a second, but another thing I've seen about this like breakneck speed of getting things done, they asked J.D. Vance, like, you guys have gotten a lot of stuff done. He's like, yeah, it's going to be like this the whole 4 years. So
I mean, that would be...
Wow. And what happens is like, we've talked about in this podcast how there's like this establishment of traditional media that is like built around, like a administrative type government, like a deep state, right? And when you move that fast, the establishment media can't literally keep up. You go to the homepage of like CNN or New York Times and it's like almost outdated a lot of times because he's done something else and they can't even keep up with it. So you're kind of shattering the like narrative building capabilities of like a media establishment.
Yeah. I think the funniest thing I saw with all this stuff was like with Chuck Schumer was giving like a press conference. He's talking about, he's like, Elon is dismantling everything. What's he going to do next? Get rid of the IRS? And people are like,
sweet.
Yeah, cool. Like what?
Well, as of today, they pushed forward getting rid of the Department of Education. That's been a thing, but it's starting to now take shape.
Yeah.
That's been in place since the 70s, apparently.
And the expenditures for the Department of Education have been up only, and our results on education have been flat only.
Yeah.
You can't like advocate for getting rid of the Department of Education because like people are literally like, what, you don't want kids to get educated?
I think they think.
But this is an example exactly like your first example of like when people just look at tariffs and say something like really blanket and stupid and like it's black and white. No, this would bring the power back to the states. And I think that makes a lot of sense in the type of country we live in. We've got 50 states, widely diverse regions, peoples. Like, it's too much for the federal government to run. And, like, most of the expenditures go toward non-teaching, direct, positive roles that don't do anything for children. It's just bureaucracy. It doesn't do anything for the kids.
It's like crazy, man. It's been very fascinating to watch, like, Elon like digging into some of this stuff, like the USAID.
Are we going to talk about this?
Are we talking about that? Is that on the agenda?
That's a topic for sure.
The Doge, just Doge in
is
general.
a topic. Yeah,
it's just been fascinating to watch. Like I am just sitting here watching it. Like this is interesting. I generally like everything that's happening. I do. I don't know that like everything is unabashedly good. Like there's definitely some weird shit happening that we could talk about, but like I am interested in watching it go down. Like I'm very interested in just watching somebody bulldoze all the shit, which I have for a long time said is just complete garbage, and just seeing like if we function without it, just like Twitter. Like he went in, he gutted like 85% of Twitter, and it just still worked, and it was fine, And I suspect the government is like that, but even worse.
The government's way worse.
It's got to be way worse.
Way worse.
I'm conflicted
People
about
at Twitter were talented. These were people that, there's a high-end tech job.
Yeah.
And he got rid of 80% of
Yeah, and it's a publicly traded company. It's like accountable to shareholders and the marketplace and everything.
Yeah, dude.
If like 80% of Twitter can like evaporate and Twitter's fine, what do you think the numbers are for government? Is it like 97%? It
Yeah,
might be fucking
90s.
crazy. It might be like absolutely insane because there's no checks there, right? It's like
Because, you
stuff
know,
just
I
runs
don't
wild
know a lot
forever.
of killers that work in the government, like some aspects of the government, but these typical jobs are like get in and be in there forever and never get fired. And like
Get a
if
pension.
that's and if that's your outcome and that's your role, first of all, like power to the people that do that and had that opportunity. Like that's great. Good for you. But like that means that this is not going to run like a well-oiled machine. This is not going to be like government is ineffective, and it is. Everybody witnesses that in any sort of interaction they do have with the government, whether it's USPS or whatever the fuck you deal with. It's like it's awful. It's very inefficient.
I'm conflicted about it because, on one side I'm like, wow, like Trump gave this one person a lot of power to just start ripping out cords, canceling wires. Like, I don't know exactly how it's going down. It could be as chaotic as like the media describes, or it could be fairly orderly and there's somewhat of a process to like shut these things down. But in any case, I'm kind of like, man, I kind of align with the person ripping the cords out and canceling wires. But what if it was someone that I didn't align with? Would I be as comfortable with this, with one person and his own proprietary team coming in and just like pulling the ripcord on things? Like, what if it was like, who's Soros's kid?
Alex?
Yeah.
But you guys said that Doge is not doing the cord pulling and is not
Seems
doing
like
the
they
firing.
might be.
It's about exposing.
No, hold on.
Isn't
like,
it?
That was
That's
our,
what we thought.
Yeah,
He's making recommendations.
well,
like
that was
everything
our-
ultimately.
That was our
is-
thought at first, that they were going to make suggestions and not be able to actually do anything. But it seems like they're actually like cutting off payments.
Yeah, and actually, Armand, if you go to the Doge related card, I just pull up the Doge Twitter handle, and they've been posting updates of like, here's what we cut. And I'll just start while you pull that up. I'll start reading off some of these. So they posted 3 hours ago. NASA leadership has verified that this was canceled today. NASA apparently spent $500,000 on Politico subscriptions, so that's canceled.
How many Politico subscriptions is that?
And like yesterday they posted, okay, today, 12 consulting contract terminations for a total savings of $30 million, including a $23 million work order for digital monetization, program management, office support. And then you keep going down. Today's number has increased to 22 contract terminations for a total of $45 million savings. And then you keep going down, and there's like, in the past 6 days, the number of lease terminations of underutilized buildings has increased from 3 to 22, with increased savings from 1.6 million to 44.6 million. So it seems like they're terminating contracts, and
They're actually doing things.
it sounds like it. And I think through January 29th, 85 DEI-related contracts totaling $1 billion have been terminated within the Department of Education, and he lists, 30 departments. So,
And USAID is another element of that.
right. So it sounds like they're actually doing stuff, which
It sounds like they're doing more than people. Like a lot of, I like the consensus take was like, oh, this is gonna be like a
Yeah, that's what I
figurehead
thought.
thing that
Yeah.
won't do anything.
I didn't think
And
so.
now people are like, they're doing too much.
Well, I mean, on one side I was conflicted because I'm like, okay, one person has this role, but then on the other side I'm like, well, if you want this done, you kind of need like an Elon character.
Yeah, you can't create a bureaucracy to get rid of the
No,
bureaucracy.
you
It
kind of
doesn't
need
make any
someone like this
sense.
with this
Yeah.
much like I don't know what you want to call it, like influence could be a word, but like just to get in there and be like, you do this.
Unilateral power with one very clear mandate.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm conflicted, but
But if the outcome is clear, like of course the individual has their own form of bias of what should or should not be gutted out. Like, and that's where you might disagree.
Well, I see this on like a individual scale, because like my circle is typically with like rich people who like want to remove government bloat, but are kind of left leaning. So it's funny to like watch them like tiptoe this line where they're like, no, yeah, we got to cut the deficit, but oh no, not like this.
Not like that. Not like that.
and it shocks me like when they point out USAID, which is basically like a, it's a pool of money to give to foreign foreign governments. Like it's foreign aid is exactly
It's
what it's
more than foreign
Okay,
aid,
but
right?
but still, like they're like, this is not what he campaigned on. I'm like, that's pretty much exactly what he campaigned on. Was like America first, stop giving money to other countries. Like this seems like kind of right up
You wanna
their
pull up this
alley.
tweet, Eric?
Oh yeah, this is a good one.
From Bukele.
Is this Bukele?
Yeah.
Okay, let me pull
Oh
this
my
up.
God! Speaking of Bukele, did you guys see he was like, "We'll take your prisoners"?
Yeah, like
Oh, I
we'll,
saw
we'll
that.
offer
And
you a
did
paid
you see the
service.
photos he posted? They were terrifying. It was
Dude, their
like
prison
terrifying.
like, he's
Probably
really-
violates
it
all the
creeps,
human
man.
rights.
It was so scary. I think Marty replied in the Discord. He was like, "I think this will be if that was real. Like if you knew as a criminal, like you could end up in El Salvador prison. That's like a serious deterrent.
It's working.
It could work very well to be like, yeah, I don't think we should pull off this heist. I don't want to go to fucking prison with MS-17.
It
MS-13.
seems like it's working, but I only get the social media propaganda,
Well, how is it work-
obviously. So
what's working about it?
I don't know. It's from what I see on social media, which again is like a large asterisk because I could just be being propagandized. But it seems like he has like dramatically reduced crime and the power and the
Oh, in
impact
El
of gangs and
Salvador?
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. They definitely want us to think it's.
I mean,
become
when we went there, we
amazing.
knew it was one of the like
Oh,
murder
dude, it
capitals
was
of the world.
Scary. when
Yeah.
we went. It was scary. That was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, long time
Yeah.
ago.
So what does this tweet say?
Okay, so this is Nayib Bukele. He's a president. I think that's the title of the head of El Salvador. Most governments don't want USAID funds flowing into their countries because they understand where much of that money actually ends up. While marketed as support for development, democracy, and human rights, the majority of these funds are funneled into opposition groups, NGOs with political agendas, and destabilizing movements. At best, maybe 10% of the money reaches real projects that help people in need. There are such cases, but the rest is used to fuel dissent, finance protests, and undermine administrations that refuse to align with the globalist agenda. Cutting this so-called aid isn't just beneficial for the United States, it's also a big win for the rest of the world.
Back to the globalist thing, man. I'm telling you, like everyone's just cutting that out in every way.
I mean, USAID is really interesting. I think Kennedy started it, and it sort of fronts as this like aid kind of thing, but in reality, it seems like it's just been this like covert ops group to just like topple governments and shit. Like here's an example. Very recently, in Cuba, like somebody created this like Twitter platform for Cuba. I forgot the name of it, right? And it became wildly popular there. And then it got exposed that actually it was this like USAID group that created it. And then there was like a congressional hearing. They were like, where were these funds earmarked for you to create a social media group like in Cuba, presumably to topple Castro or to
Sounds like a Gen
farm
Next
data,
operative.
right? Because
I mean, the U.S. is infamous for this. This is our
Right.
This is our story.
so like
This is like a core part of our history is how we funnel
Yeah.
money into countries to put them under leverage and take advantage of them and capture resources, topple governments, put other resources in price action that is like way more in our favor. Like that's just what we do. That's what we've always done. This would be a move away from that.
Yeah.
America interventionist.
I mean, they could
style.
still use it as a CIA asset. Just
Who runs this? Like
it's a separate entity, and it's not like
Who
well,
influences it?
I mean, Elon looked at it and he was he was basically like, "This is beyond saving. It's so corrupt. Everything is so fucked that we have to like blow the whole thing up."
I believe that it's super corrupt. I believe that most of what the U.S. does is
For
corrupt.
sure. The problem with this is like you go on Twitter and there'll be like a doctor in like Africa who'd be like, "Cutting this is such a travesty because you are preventing AIDS in this province of like Kenya or something." And it's just like, yeah, that's probably true, but like what fraction of the money went to like preventing malaria in Africa versus like how much did you spend during like weird covert ops to like topple governments that we don't know about?
This is what Bukele's saying. 10% might reach people that are doing good stuff, but that just sounds like a very corrupt nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were on our flight to Kenya when we went to Mount Kilimanjaro, and you remember we slept that whole flight, right?
Yeah.
We slept most of it, but I got up towards the end and I talked to my neighbor, and I was like, "Oh, American dude, kind of like a middle-aged white guy. Looks like he handled himself. Had like military style shoes on, whatever. Like kind of a everyday carry type of guy. And I was like, oh, what are you going to Kenya for? He's like, oh, I'm part of USAID. And I was like, oh, do you work with the CIA a lot? And his eyes just went like, what the fuck? And I was like, what? And he was like, well, we interface with them through the embassy. Like we talk to them.
Talk to the wrong random
Yeah,
dude.
and I just woke up and I was like, oh, this is an interesting discussion. But yeah, I mean, like some of the programs are so weird in there. You're like, transgender studies for women in
Oh,
Afghanistan.
dude, some of the stuff they're quoting was like ridiculous. They're like, we spent $48,000 to fund a transgender opera in Ireland, and like $52,000 to like fund a transgender comic book in Peru, and they're just like all these like weird line items.
But please tax me
the
more.
world is changing
Tax me more,
on
baby.
such a crazy level. It's not even funny. Did you guys see there was a Trump clip that was going pretty viral of him being funny? There was an Afghan lady that asked a question, and he was like, did you guys see that? So
No.
there's this lady, I don't know if she was a reporter, I don't know if she was civilian, and she asked a question. And he's like, where are you from? And she's like, Afghanistan. He's like, oh, beautiful, beautiful culture, beautiful language. Unfortunately, I didn't understand a single thing you just said. And all I have to say is, because her question, he understood exactly what she said. Because she's like, what are you going to do about the situation in Afghanistan? How are you going to continue
Do you have a thick
helping us?
accent or something?
It wasn't that thick.
Okay.
No, it was very intentional. It was funny, but it was rude. It was rude, and it was intentional because he was just like, "You don't sound American. I don't understand you." It was like that very typical kind of like rude shit. But that's not the bad part. The part that was interesting was he was just like, "Good luck, and peace be with you." Like, we're done. Like, we're done.
Yeah.
You're on your own. And it was so interesting. Like, it's just exactly what's happening. He looks at that as like, we fucked up there. It was the word, he always says, like, worst withdrawal ever, most embarrassing day in American history when we left Afghanistan. All that aside, he's basically saying, like, now that we're gone, like, good luck. Like, literally. Yeah. That can be concerning, right? That can be concerning. That can be concerning for other countries. America is looking at that from a perspective of leverage, like, we're going to be okay, and we're going to make sure we're okay, back to my earlier point, by being proactive about all the areas that we might be vulnerable, to make sure that if somebody does have leverage on us in a certain vertical or in a certain area, we take care of that now. I think that's the agenda. Like, I think that's really what it's down to.
I'm kind of cool with this general like semi-isolationist thing where it's like, yeah, I don't think most people in America want to be spending money to kill people here or there and all that, and I think that's fine. The thing that has given me like the most ick about the administration like so far has been like like have you seen like the recent like Gaza stuff?
That's what I was gonna ask, dude.
Bro, like,
if we're gonna be isolation,
It's like it's kind of fucked up. Like,
What was it? What I saw today. We're
dude,
gonna
he's
take the
like,
Gaza
he's
Strip.
basically like, oh, you should all like leave and go somewhere else, and then we'll like develop it. I was like, oh my god, like this is not
In the
not
middle of a
good.
hostage transfer.
Bro, it's like
you want to throw a hostage transfer,
it's-
like
I was like, this is not. This is
Yeah,
not
I mean,
good.
part of the cost of like getting a lot of shit done is you're going to create a lot of new messes.
that one's a big one. I feel.
that one is like doesn't fit into the whole
No,
puzzle
nobody-
piece for me.
nobody
though,
needed that
right,
one.
the isolationist narrative is completely broken with that.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm like, why do we? Are you gonna like 1031 it into like Panama Canal? Or
Build some
I saw someone said we're gonna 1031
McDonald's.
Gaza into Greenland on Twitter. I was
Oh
like,
my
yeah, all
god.
right. Yeah, that one doesn't fit.
I've definitely also noticed an increase in racism on X, big time. I think part of the thing with like get the illegals out is like it starts to make people, a little like fuck off, man. Like, you're not from here, or are you? Are you first generation? Are you a legal migrant? Are you legal? Like,
Wish
it
I could
just starts
zoom
to
in.
make everybody like really fucking aggressive, and I think that's a huge concern of the left, has always been, and that's very real.
Yeah, it's a
I
real
think that
concern.
also exists with like just saying like there's no trans people anymore. Like, what? What do you mean? Like, okay, hold on a second. hold on a second. Like, okay, you want to remove he, thee, they from signatures? Okay, all right, I understand, no problem. Maybe we went a little too far, but that doesn't mean there's no trans people. That doesn't mean that gay people shouldn't be respected anymore.
Yeah, that's a
like,
good point.
let's calm the fuck down, because part of this is like, if you get a little too hot in the seat, people, very dumb people, will take it a lot further than you do. That's the concern I have, is like, you might, this was the whole January 6th thing, which, by the way, I don't want to open the door on January 6th, but if you say one thing, your supporters that don't have the capacity to evaluate this in the same way you do will take it much, much further. Like, you have to be careful. You do have to be careful how you approach things, and speaking in those very, clean sweep kind of like strong statement ways can come with serious repercussions. That's why, like, being a good communicator and speaking in nuance is important, in my opinion. Like, it's very important to say, like, hey, like, this has been a problem. We're going to change this because we don't want, fucking pedophile boys in the girls' locker room. No one's happy about that. But hey, you know what? That doesn't mean that there aren't real people that are really suffering and are going through mental health issues and are going through transitions with gender identity. And that's okay too. And we want to continue to support them and fund initiatives that help those people. Like, fucking, if I was president, that's how I'd be talking. Like, that's how, I think that's what people want and expect. Like, you can't say those things and expect everyone to just be like respectful. And this has always been the thing with Trump, right? Is like, he's going to turn people into assholes. And I'm seeing it a lot on Twitter lately. For sure.
I have a slightly different take on this. I
Thought you
agree that there has been an uptick in people just being like, fuck
off and go home.
Jews, fuck immigrants, fuck trans. Like, it's definitely been like an uptick in that. I actually haven't noticed an uptick in like fuck gay people, which I think is kind of like interesting.
They've crossed the chasm.
Well, I think the reason behind this isn't there's definitely a sense where people are like emboldened. Like, I definitely agree with this, right? And it's not good.
It's not good at all.
But
dude.
I also think that the difference in those two sentiments is that like one of those groups like sort of like I think the gays in the 90s 2000s like they like won out their battle in the hearts and minds of people in like kind of like a free market sense. And like I don't know, like I don't hang out with anybody, and I don't see anybody online. I'm sure you can find people who exist, right? I'm not going to speak in like broad terms, like yeah, exactly. But like generally speaking, like people are like cool with the gays, man. It's like fine.
Yeah, if
right?
you look at the chart of acceptance toward, it's way
People-
up. Like over 90%, I
Yeah,
believe, are
like people
in the country are completely okay with that.
people are mad at like immigrants and trans people. Like that anger comes from a place of like, fuck you, this shit was like crowbarred onto me. And like I'm like mad at this as like in a reactionary sense where like I didn't want this fucking shit crowbarred on me. And that's why I see like really like people write really horrible shit about like the helicopter pilot, with like a woman. And then people are just like say all this shit about like DEI, right? And
Wait,
it's
the
just
one
like
in DC was a female.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
and it sucks that people do that. But like I think a root of the anger to that is because people feel like there's been this like non-merit based thing crammed down upon them, and so they associate everybody under that umbrella with like you didn't deserve this, like you're just like a diversity hire, you're just this, and so like. When you take away, when you strip away like the merit of like a group, then it becomes easy for people to sort of like just like attach all these bad things to the group because they're just like, oh, this whole group is invalid. This whole group is just shoved upon me up from on high from some government policy. And now I'm going to be reactionary and just say like everybody in this group sucks, which is not correct. It's not correct.
Yeah, it's just conflating things.
Right, but I
terrible.
think it comes from a point of like there is like a like there is something to that, right? Like if you basically say like I am going to only hire air traffic controllers who are like not what like unless you were just like ignorant of statistics, right? Or like basic rules of logic, you're basically saying on some mathematical level that I am making the average candidate less qualified because I am changing things around. And then people pick up on that, and then they basically attribute everybody with that trait to being like not qualified, which isn't good. Like, this is one of the things I hate about DEI and affirmative action and everything, is that like people start, you don't want a world where people like have like a black doctor and they're like, oh God, it's probably like a DEI doctor. Because like
But
it
that's
probably
what's kinda-
isn't.
But that's what Trump is potentially like fueling, right? Like if within 6 hours of a plane crash happening, he's saying DEI this and DEI that, he's basically encouraging people to like look through that
Absolutely.
lens.
No,
and-
I agree, and it's not good.
Absolutely.
But I'm saying the reason that there's fuel there to ignite is because of this. So like they're both bad. Like he should not be doing that. It's
I
not
didn't
cool.
know he did that. That's fucking terrible.
Oh, he definitely did.
That's
Yeah.
the fucking worst time. You don't do that at that time.
No, it's very bad. It's you shouldn't do that, right?
Jesus, man.
But also at the same time, the reason that people like go like is because there is like something
grain
there.
of
There
truth,
is like
yeah.
a fuel that is there to be lit, right? So I think you have to be able to look at both of these things and be like, that's
Yeah,
bad.
and the
but
reality
also
is
this
we,
is
we can't
not
know
good.
because we lived under that system. We can't know, was this a qualified individual or was this a quote unquote DEI
Yeah.
hire? It's too difficult to parse out.
But it wouldn't
should
be
be
something we'd
forward-looking.
have to parse out in a world where we just hire on merit and everything, right?
Yeah.
It's just like nobody talks
Yeah,
about how like
hiring
the
on merit's
Treasury
better.
Secretary is gay, right? Like it's just
better.
not, nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
People are just like, oh, this guy's a fucking Chad. He's like the goat, right? Nobody talks about it. It was like very interesting watching like Trump's like new press secretary come in versus the old one. Like Karine Jean-Pierre came in and she was just like, her first things were like, yes, I am the first like black gay press secretary. That was first words out of her mouth. And then so like everybody is just viewing everything she does under the frame of like, are you qualified or are you just here because you're like a person who checks boxes to be crammed down my throat? And that's bad because then if you are legitimately good and talented, then everybody starts viewing you through that frame, and it just festers this like kind of like anger and resentment
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like kind of gets like lit, and it's not a good thing.
Well, maybe to make it a threesome of things we don't like Trump's doing. So we named Gaza, property development, overutilization of DEI. But the third thing, kind of back to the tariffs, is like he's saying he needs to improve these trade deals, but he was also the one who renegotiated NAFTA 2.0 with Mexico and Canada. So it's like a thing that also I can't reconcile. He's like, these are terrible trade deals. I'm like, bro, you negotiated them in 2017, 18.
I'm glad you brought the tariffs back because I wanted to ask you specifically. Like we talked about why these tariffs might be game theory optimized, but there's like also people on the other end of these tariffs, and amongst our midst is somebody who imports goods and is getting tariffed.
Yeah.
Like how is this affecting you? Like is this crippling?
Well, if you take all of the actions as a whole, it's actually a net positive for us. So included in this like action was removing Section 321. And if you remember, if you were listening to our Temu and Sheen episode, talking about these,
There was like an
Oh,
$800 threshold.
exactly. So there's a de minimis rule.
huge win. Right?
Yeah, big win. So basically, you can get out of all the tariffs if you are shipping something that is under the value of $800 in an individual package, right? And so Temu and Shein are these Chinese companies that kind of have apps like Amazon, and you can get pants for 99 cents and, laptops for like $100 or whatever. They sell things very cheaply. And they've done it on purpose. They're losing money on purpose to try to get a bunch of app downloads, enter the U.S. market. And then this entire time, you look at large retailers and they've been paying hundreds of millions of tariffs, and Temu and Shein have paid $0. And they've been sending in 3 to 4 million packages a day. I mean, the scale at which they operate.
Related, USPS banned shipments from China, packages. It lasted like 2 days. I don't even know why, but it's back on apparently.
Back on?
Yeah, as
Wow.
of today, it's back on.
The
But,
women
like,
on TikTok were
they
not
were-
happy about losing their
they
Shein.
were not
Yeah. So we win in two instances. These large companies compete in an auction-based environment in the advertising space, right? So they're bidding up the auction prices by spending hundreds of millions of dollars billions of dollars at a loss to gain market share. But then also
So you're saying that brings down the cost of advertising?
yeah,
for
I mean,
everybody?
like not like instantly, not thing, but just generally, it's a good trend because when they were scaling, you could feel it, you know. And then the other area is just all the knockoff goods. Like we are constantly battling. We're having this battle which we'll never win, and we never. I'm never like looking at Amazon. You search one of our products, and it's just our product on there, not like 7 other copycats using our brand name, using our packaging, selling it for half the price, and then you actually order it, and you're like, it's just like nondescript packaging. It's a quarter of the size, and we're paying tariffs, and they're not. So I think in the advertising system, and then in the marketplaces, like even if you Google search our names, because they're listed on Amazon and Walmart on these marketplaces, they show up on the first page results if you look for our brand. So we're spending millions of dollars a month in advertising for these products, and people end up on one of these like knockoffs. So I'm hoping this kind of deters the knockoffs from even starting, and they'll do things like trademark squat. So as soon as like search volume increases over like 100 searches, they'll just go register for the trademark, and then you have to battle them out, threaten to sue them, show them you were selling it before they were, and just like a bunch of legal fees per SKU.
Isn't this proof in the pudding that free market trade is not inherently good? Like if you were truly just like, yeah, free market, and you wanted people to just get they would have nothing. You'd like allow everybody to be knocked off, right?
I disagree because like I think like free market trade is good, but then you have these like the power is not just in the rules of like the Constitution, the laws. The power is also concentrated in marketplaces like Amazon. Where you're like, hey, Amazon, got the trademark. They're using our trademark term. They're even copying our packaging. Please take them down. And it's like 5 days later, no response, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then you might get 1 out of 10 taken down, and then if you make too many requests, they're like, stop sending in so many requests. I'm like, but there's
so many copycats.
There's so many copycats, like and with Amazon, you have to pay for a representative to help you. Like if you want a human assigned to your account, you have to pay them like $8,000 a month. It's like ridiculous. So I think there are issues more with like just concentrated market power beyond just free trade. Because also, like, if I didn't have to pay these tariffs and they don't have to pay them, if we just, same playing field, then
we just compete.
We just compete.
Right, but isn't this what I'm saying though? Like, if you didn't live in a world where anybody did anything, Amazon, I guess Amazon's kind of motivated by their customers to some extent, but like also they don't care about you that much, right? They mostly just care that their customers are like, okay, right? So if Amazon wasn't beholden to any federal laws and like they didn't do anything, like that would just be pure free market, right? Like just game on. Everybody like clones your shit and they squat on your copyright, like. But that's not good. So if you admit that it is good for Amazon to do some controls,
yes,
and it is good for the government to force Amazon to do some things, like, is it that much of a leap to be like, well, some particular tariff policy might be good?
Yeah, I think you can make that argument. You can make that argument that there is some, completely free market. I mean, I can make several other arguments against it, generally speaking. But
against like the free market, like completely free market.
For free market.
Oh,
like the highest regulated industries are the ones who've, let us down the most, and costs have increased the most.
I agree.
So there's obviously a balance, right?
There's a balance for sure.
Yeah.
But like you don't think like just full.
Nah. I mean, I like that there's trademark law.
Yeah.
And I can copyright our packaging design and.
Is it like anarcho-capitalism? Is that like just free everything?
I don't know if I know what that word means anymore. It's been used so much in the last.
It sounds
7
cool
days.
to say it.
It does. It does sound very cool.
It's provocative. Keep it going.
That's literally what I was thinking. Oh.
Like if I was just wearing a hat that just said anarcho-capitalist, people would be like, "Wow."
It was funny though. We hired someone last week, and he was going in this Monday to tell his company that he's leaving. And over the weekend, he smartly texted me. He's like, "Hey, these tariffs make you reconsider maybe any recent hires you've made? Just curious on the effects of the business. I was like, smart question to ask before you like put in your 2 weeks notice or whatever, but we're good. And beyond that, I think it's going to be net positive for us. So,
Well, you weren't sure that was going to be the case, so that's great.
I
man.
mean, 10% doable, right? If it goes higher, I mean, he's talking 60%.
Didn't we go through this before?
Yeah, we talked about it before, but yeah, I mean, if you go 60%.
I mean, during his first term.
Oh, yeah, and I think where I eventually landed, and
I feel like I remember going through this with.
I was freaking out. I flew to China. I was like, hey, you need to set up in Malaysia. You need to set up in Vietnam, and have to like basically move the factories from China to another country. But then, and I mentioned on it like 2 weeks ago on this podcast, I didn't realize at the time. I remember when the currency values were changing, and I was like, holy shit. Stuff's getting cheaper.
It's actually working out for me.
I was like, but I didn't associate the two. And so now looking back, I'm looking at the charts. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess maybe the dollar did increase when we had these tariffs and certainly increase now. And so, if you have an advanced supply chain buying structure in which you're buying in their local currency, it benefits you. Most companies, if you're just like buying an Alibaba or through a broker, that's how most companies, they have a sourcing agent that buys on their behalf. They're pricing you in dollars. So you're more fucked. Yeah. Also, the whole tariff system is super confusing. There's like, in any given category, you might have like 75 different codes that you can file under. And you're like, well, which one's the right one? Like, I don't want to go to jail. Like, I don't want to get fined.
And some are tariffed and some are not.
And exactly. And some have different levels. And you're like, well, my instinct is just to pick the cheapest one.
Yeah.
But like, is that wrong? I'll just pick something in the middle here that like,
choosing
fits-
wine at a
Safe.
restaurant menu.
Exactly. It's like looking at
Let's go mid shelf.
By the second cheapest bottle.
there's like
That's
500.
the one to avoid.
The second cheapest?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Always.
So the cheapest is the best?
cheapest is better.
Oh.
Between the two.
Oh, so it's like a metagame. They know everybody
Never
is going
choose
to.
second cheapest.
Oh, wow.
They know everyone's gonna go second cheapest.
Yeah, you're on the date. It's like, didn't get the cheap one, babe.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I feel like I should know that.
You guys want to talk sovereign wealth
I
fund?
want to go deeper.
Sovereign.
Yeah, let's talk.
Ready to
let's
go
talk
deeper.
sovereign wealth.
Sovereign wealth fund, real quick.
Okay,
and then we go on
into
deeper.
sovereign.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do want this topic.
So Trump established a sovereign wealth fund, which is traditionally reserved for countries that have a budget surplus. And if you're an American listening, a surplus is a two-syllable word. I think Latin etymology, but it means that like that you have more money than you're spending. You're not running a deficit. And I find it weird that like we're starting a sovereign wealth fund. It's like, with what money? Like, countries that have massive energy, revenues are.
Arab money?
Yeah,
we make it out of thin air, sir.
I guess you're right. We can. So I don't know. I thought the whole concept was like silly to me. It's like, what are you doing? You're going to borrow money? You're going to leverage up the whole portfolio from the start? Where's the money coming from?
My only concern is, what does it do to Bitcoin?
Well, that's where this conversation
Is it in
probably
the
gonna head.
fund? Because
Well, I think Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, is the guy who's going to potentially like kick this thing
That's
off.
the
And
Kenner Fitzgerald guy.
yeah, like he was what do you call it? Like a custodian for Tether. He's got a fuck ton of Bitcoin in his personal portfolio, so I can imagine he's just willing to let it rip.
yeah, it's kind of weird in a sense that it's this weird back door to like make people really rich. Because like you're like, oh, just like I'll just buy this like asset that's not that, like, with Bitcoin's like a couple $1 trillion, right? Which is nothing, right? So if you own like a bunch of Bitcoin and you're just like, oh, just make the government buy my bags and then I'll get 10 times richer. Like that's
You can have like
Little
1/10
weird.
of the country just get super rich, and the
Yeah,
other
it's
90%
a-
be like, wait, what?
So, the most prominent sovereign wealth fund that we're familiar with is the Saudis,
Or isn't there a Norwegian
the
one?
Norwegian one, and both of those,
No.
in both of those instances, those are like oil
they
producing.
just have too
countries.
much money.
have
and they're
cash
like, we
sitting
have
around.
to-
They
we have to put
produce
this cash
they
into
produce money
something.
out of the ground, in terms of in oil, and then they have a bunch of cash and they need to like invest that cash.
Yeah, they buy a ton of treasuries with it, and they're like, okay, well, we have enough of these guys.
And the Saudi version, they're buying a bunch of weird shit like soccer teams.
Yeah, they invest in U.S. equities,
Yeah.
Mhm.
private companies.
Start their own golf league.
Yeah, golf leagues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could say like part of it is like soft power whitewashing, a country, but also I'm sure they're trying to get an ROI off it as well. So what do we?
Is that like our goal? Is to get an ROI off the U.S. balance sheet? Is that like? Because that sounds.
Yeah, but
Well, the next
we have
point is that we don't have any cash to invest. We're running a deficit.
No, but we can like use debt and.
I mean, I guess theoretically, if you're gonna beat your hurdle rate, which is currently what's the 30-year mortgage at, or 30-year
And if
T-bill
you
at?
don't, you just print money. It's pretty good.
I mean, how would the market react if you just printed a bunch of fucking money, but then you just used it to buy assets that go up by a lot more than the dollar does? Would the market go down, or would the market be like, huh?
I mean, part of
This
me
is me being very drunk, by the way.
No.
There's no expertise at all. here.
Part of me is like the way and I forget where I heard this, but like the way the U.S. participates in, like, let's say they're going to buy the stock market, they're going to leverage up 30-year T-bills and go buy the S&P 500. Market would probably be like, sweet. But the way the government makes its money off that is through taxes, right? Like those go up in value. People sell their shares. They rip off their capital gains tax.
Like a human centipede thing at some point.
Yeah, I guess so. All right. So if we just put that aside, that we don't have the money for the sovereign wealth fund, what should we?
What do you mean we don't have the money? We just print the money.
We've got the money.
Okay,
we have
print the money.
We have all the money.
What are we going to put it
We
in?
got some money, Lebowski.
What do we put it in?
Infinite money glitch. Like you
That's
print
the
money
money
to buy
loss.
stuff, and then the market's like, oh wow, that was a good use of the money, and then you're like, oh, I guess we should print more money, and then you buy more stuff, and then the stuff you bought goes up in value, so you print more money.
Trump said he wanted 50% TikTok equity thrown in the sovereign wealth fund.
That's
Wild. It actually is like Lebowski because it actually ends up being the dirty undies. Is what's in there. it's just shit.
Isn't this
paper.
what Sailor's doing with
the
Bitcoin?
whites.
The whites?
Right? Like he's basically printing money to buy Bitcoin, and then the market is rewarding him for printing money to buy Bitcoin, and in doing so, the Bitcoin that he printed money to buy goes up, and then the market rewards him with more money to buy more Bitcoin.
It's
Is he just ahead of his time? Like if the U.S. just did this, is it an infinite money glitch?
So what's the U.S. going to put in there? I think that Bitcoin is like on the short list of assets they're going to put in there. I think the S&P is probably higher on that short list.
I mean, anything that's like a necessary commodity to like exist in the world. Like if you know like all of the money in the world is fucked, right? Wouldn't you just buy as much real shit as possible?
So
Just buy all the
oil,
copper, all the lithium, all the gold,
Yeah.
all of everything. Just print everything to buy all that shit, and then just throw everybody else under the bus. And then when everybody else is poor, you'd be like, guys, I think we should just reset the whole system. And then you're like, oh, by the way, I have a stockpile of like all of
Yeah, I
the
have
elements on Earth. But like, doesn't that seem like optimal? How is that not optimal? In like a Machiavellian, every man
I mean,
for himself.
if the bond buyers are those foreign countries, they may be like, fuck yourself. I'm not buying your debt anymore.
Right, but what if we're just like, you're going to buy our bonds, or we're going to tariff you 30%?
All right, I see the trap you're setting.
Like what if we were just like Canada's like, we're not, Mr. President, we're not going to take your 25% tariffs, and then like we're just like, okay, we'll take them off, but buy our debt. And they were like, okay. Is that the end goal? Just everybody buy our debt,
Maybe.
or we tariff you?
I like a leveraged sovereign wealth fund.
Yeah, why not? Why not just like send it?
Send it,
Just
baby.
like
I also saw Eric Trump. I forget which one of the kids is the retarded one, but anyway, he
Eric.
said, okay.
well, I mean,
No,
they're
no,
both,
no,
they're both pretty.
There's a more retarded.
Not
one.
Baron. Baron is
No,
a
no.
fucking G. But
There's
the
a
other
middle
the
one.
other two guys are
The
definitely.
middle one's even worse. He's like a cokehead.
Wait, who?
no, that was Biden's kid, right? Or they both are? Probably both are.
A lot of
Hunter.
them are. A lot of
Yeah.
them are.
Wait, who else is there besides Don and Eric?
Don Jr., Eric, Barron. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
I was thinking between Don and Eric.
Maybe, yeah, I'm thinking of Don. and-
No, Baron's just sitting there like biding his time.
No,
like,
Barron's
yes, good. And then like Don and like Eric is retarded, and then Don is, well, kind of like a different kind. He's like half retarded, half douche.
Okay, so one of them, Don was even like introducing at the inauguration. He's like, "This one's a little rough around the edges."
Did he?
Yeah. And the son is like, "Yeah."
While Barron's like, yes, father. So anyway, Eric Trump tweeted, in my opinion, it's a great time to add ETH.
Oh,
And
God.
in his original tweet, he said, in my opinion, it's a great time to add ETH. You'll thank me later. And then
Deleted.
the next day, Sovereign Wealth Fund comes out. Are you cluing us into something? Is this like insider
Is
trading
this-
out
is
in the
this
open?
Clear crime.
Yeah.
Bro, there's too much crime. There's too much grift. This is not good.
It's bad.
It's
really
like
bad.
they realize that like crypto is this infinite money glitch for grift that exists outside the system, which is true, but it's like they're like just breaking it now. It's like taking it to its logical end and just breaking everything. And the only thing they can't break is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So basically everything is just going to zero versus Bitcoin now because it's just like a giant grift enrichment scheme, and they've pushed the market to like its inevitable logical conclusion, unfortunately.
So
Like
Nick-
it was already set up to be like this.
They were like
but now they're just like
the first generation.
they're just hitting the grift button and just blowing everything up.
The first generation's like Vanderbilt's like commodities, oil, steel. Second generation probably like real estate. I don't know. And now the third, that their like claim to fame is gonna be like
To rough around the edges, son.
yeah, it's like
good time to buy ETH.
coins.
folks.
We made our gorillions of coins.
When you saw that tweet, was that like how did you respond to that viscerally? Is that like, oh my god,
One of my very thick eyebrows pointed up. I was like,
this is time to send or like time to sell everything?
I don't know. Oh, did Armand lock himself out?
Oh shit!
No, I think Armand's
I'll get
knocking
him.
out.
Okay.
Camera's on you.
That's hilarious. Armand locked himself out.
Oh no! And when Eric Trump tweeted this, like initially I was just like, "Do not fucking buy this shit, everybody. Do not be exit liquidity." But then I was like thinking about it in my head. I'm like, wait, what part of the bell curve am I? Am I being mid curve, or is it like am I being like, President's son said buy ETH, I buy.
Right. Like, I don't know. I saw some Twitter screenshot of someone with, like them unloading some ETH, and I was like, okay, maybe they were trying to just. Pump
All right.
it.
Well,
I don't know if that was
they
true either.
they said they were just moving it for custody,
Okay.
which is kind of like the new testing liquidity.
Yeah, exactly. That's like what FTX exactly said. We're debating if Eric Trump's ETH tweet was like a signal that he's just trying to dump on all of us, or that he's actually cluing us in that we should own this coin because he's the president's son, and then have a sovereign wealth fund on leverage.
70-30 he's trying to dump on us.
Remember when Armand sat in this chair trying to tell me how Trump coin was going to be mega bullish and then everything died? I want my
Hold
money
on.
back.
Hold on.
I want my
Everything
money
is-
back.
Give it time to grow.
Give it time. Give it time. Everything. is-
Refund. Refund, please.
It's a grower, not a shower. All right.
I mean, I think, we've discussed the level of grifting that exists in this family, which I do not deny. And I think this is another grift.
Okay.
So
Another
I mean,
grift
like,
it is.
you'd be arguing that there's an altruistic tweet to help us get rich. Like I just he doesn't have enough intelligence about what the market's going to do to make such a even statement. Like it's just absurd.
Of course he does. He's like, I tweet, people buy coin, I dump on them.
Let me
it's
just
like
remind
very
everybody,
basic.
this fucking godforsaken asset is still down 44% from its all-time highs.
It is a godforsaken asset right now.
Whereas Bitcoin is up, 30, at least 40%
Yeah.
from its all-time highs. Like,
Checks out.
just fucking buy Bitcoin.
I mean, I did buy more ETH this weekend.
Because you can't
Wow.
help it.
I was like
Animal.
walking the
You
dog,
can't help
and
it.
I was like, "Oh, the market's tanking," and
But
it went
you
below my
you
red
could have
line.
bought Bitcoin for 91,000 or
But
something.
one of them was below its 200-week moving average, and one was not, and
I
that looked
know
like a
you have your
better. It's either
framework.
dead, it's either completely dead, or is a stealing deal.
Magic moving average.
No,
Yeah, magic
I
moving
think
average.
there's an in between.
I love that
I
moving
think
average.
where it's just a stable coin that only goes down.
Okay, it's not a stable coin.
Well,
it's an unstable
I
coin.
like the stable coin ETH meme. I like it. It's been pretty stable.
I'd be happy if it was a stable coin at this point.
No, dude, it's just it's. I still have way too much ETH.
Oh, good. Our camera guy's back.
I hate-
Camera's just been like on me while Armand
switch
talks.
the other
Oh,
camera.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I want to see.
I still can I
We're
just
back.
can I just I hate how much ETH I have. I hate it.
You still have ETH?
Yeah.
You've been sitting here talking shit about ETH for like years. You still own ETH?
Mr. Farcoin?
Yeah.
I want to.
I'm about to have more Farcoin than ETH.
So it sounded like you guys were talking about stable coins, which is what David Stacks was
Oh, yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, not really, but That's a good enough transition.
Okay, sorry. So Steve and I recorded Irresponsibly Long this morning, and we were talking about this more in depth. But I think like something that you
When
notice.
do those go live, by the way?
Thursday mornings.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Nice.
I have not edited it yet, though. So
We had a
I might-
technical malfunction, so there's some editing needs.
Okay.
yeah,
I heard that people want it live. Are you guys considering such a thing?
I don't know.
You don't like that?
It's been very hard for us to just record the episode at any time.
Okay.
Never mind
I
like
don't want to
set
add
live
anything to your
times.
plates here.
I know my
I-
plate is
I look
very
forward
full
to
right
it.
A
now.
lot of deep
Okay.
sighs going on
Yeah,
in this
Yeah.
room.
It's guttural.
Okay, so on the stablecoin thing, David Sachs, like the whole press conference, like we thought it might be about the Bitcoin strategic reserve. It was not about that. They kind of like poo-pooed that. But what they were talking about was stablecoin legislation. And that's interesting to me because I would think that if stablecoin legislation becomes, ossified, then we get like an actual use case for crypto rails in terms of payments. And maybe some of that value accrues to those rails on which stablecoins exist.
that seems like a logical argument.
Seems logical. It also seems mid curve because I'm like ETH focused. So like I don't know. Like this seems like a logical path.
I mean, you could argue two things. Like it just brings liquidity into the whole ecosystem, and maybe you have some stable coins there now, and you use them for transactions. And you might be like, what
but
else
it
can I
also
do with these?
like it also seems like it fills the narrative that like Bitcoiners ultimately thought was going to be Bitcoin. That like the world was going to be transaction on Bitcoin, and it fucking won't.
Nope.
Like transactions will occur in US dollars.
Our friend Bitcoin David would disagree with you. Like if he's listening right now, he's probably yelling through his.
Yeah, but
What I would love to hear what Bitcoin David's take is through your mouth, if you can.
I believe Bitcoin David's take
David
is
Seroy, right?
yes, David Seroy. Hi, David. Is that ultimately we're going to develop Bitcoin layer 2s, which will give us the ability to basically create Bitcoin-backed stablecoins, and that like people will like bid up Bitcoin because it is sort of like the collateral layer that gives them the ability to have this like seigniorage to print like Bitcoin-backed money, and we'll be able to create Bitcoin-backed dollars effectively.
Like DAI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like better
DAI.
because it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
all Bitcoin.
Would be rad.
And that'll be the final form of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's this like kind of layer 2, like stablecoin layer 2.
What could go wrong?
Bitcoin.
No, I actually think it's rad. Like Bitcoin David would love to see it.
Yeah.
It's currently not existing. Did you guys see recently that like the Bitcoin network had like 0 blocks? Like the blocks were not filled. There was just 0 transactions.
The mempool is empty, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
They're celebrating
I think
this,
part of
which
the
is weird.
stablecoin legislation will be like, cool, you could be a stablecoin, but you got to back it with treasuries or cash,
Yeah, interesting.
right? I mean, we're highly incentivized to do that. You want to export the dollar, and then people
So-
trade into those. Then those get buy treasuries. We push down the long-term interest rates. I mean,
So then that would support probably a thesis for USDC, Tether, and then maybe like apps on chain, not the protocol layer, like Athena or something. Like I think the value might accrue to USDC more in that case.
yeah, absolutely. Because like if there's a world in which stablecoins are backed by Bitcoin, this legislation could just ex-nay that and it'd have to still exist outside the U.S.
Yeah, I'm not a big proponent of the stablecoins backed by Bitcoin thing because like my observation of the world has just been that like people just want to hold dollars and they don't like care that the dollars are decentralized. That's like the whole fucking point of owning dollars is that they're not decentralized. Like
Yeah.
it's not like a thing. They just want like stability.
Right.
So I've been iffy on that. But like if you believe that, then stuff like Curve or like Athena is like great because like, you know, just like, whatever, just infrastructure for this.
Oh yeah, I guess
know?
Curve would go down or no? Wait,
I think Curve is like it's like kind of like the stablecoin rails, you know.
it's just the place you swap stable coins, right?
Yeah, it's like the nuts and bolts.
Okay, Armand, you asked for Von Deeper. I shall deliver.
All right.
Just want to go.
Let's
deeper.
lean in.
Okay. Let's see here. I forget which tweet I'm supposed to look at first, Steven. The second one.
I don't know.
You want to pull it up? Oh, You have it up.
What do you want to talk about?
What
do you want to talk about?
Matters.
You want to talk? What matters to you right
I
now?
want to talk about
Dude,
what
just
matters.
jazz it up. What are you feeling right now? Improvise.
Jazz it up, Armin.
I,
Just
don't know,
like-
I just
just-
put a zen in, and so I'm.
That's perfect. What is buzzing you right now?
I'm buzzing. I don't know. This was your guys' topic.
No, you were into the 20s thing, man. You were vibing on
Tell
it.
me about it. Tell me about it. I'm gonna react.
Well, hold on. So you pulled up this tweet.
That is
first.
not the tweet.
Armand,
Okay,
pull up the other
wrong
one.
tweet.
That is not the tweet.
Do you want this?
I want to
one?
talk about the 20s tweet.
Okay.
Oh,
Enhance.
Catherine. I like Catherine.
Enhance.
Catherine Boyle's
I
tweet.
like Kathy.
Zeta-Jones.
Kathy at Andreessen Horowitz.
Oh, is that where she's from?
Yeah,
Oh.
she is partner there.
Okay. You want to read her tweet?
This is for all you VCs listening. One of the most destructive memes of the last generation was that your 20s don't matter. Extended adolescence robbed many of their agency during their highest energy years, encouraging therapeutic self-discovery, psilocybin drugs, I believe that's what she's referring to, waiting one's turn, experimentation with identity, uselessness. The next generation is having none of that. The gerontocracy is dead. Go all in early.
And she was tweeting this in response to a tweet about the
Yes.
fact that like all the Doge people are these like 4 like 20-year-old.
Okay, yeah. So go
fact,
to that part.
the average age of NASA's mission control team during the Apollo era was 27. They put humans on the moon. Young people will bring a force of... That's insane.
Also-
I didn't know
Also,
that.
the
Holy
the
shit.
founding fathers were like
27?
19.
Founding fathers were 19.
One of them was like legit 18.
No, they were-
so young.
But
They were
dude,
youths?
they died at 50. So...
Do you think they were
you
like
had to
any
get
more
going.
mature than like?
You had to get going early. Young people
Yeah,
bring
you
a
probably had to
force
get
of
going.
curiosity and creativity that can disrupt the status quo. If we're serious about cutting waste in government spending, let's not turn away new minds.
So hold on
Absolutely
before
agreed
you
with
before
that.
you click off. That top left image, that's the Doge team.
That's
This
the
is
Doge
them.
team.
I'm a big Luke fan.
Yo, Luke, yeah, he created some like AI algo to
Dude,
like
this guy
extract like
fucking-
writing from these like unreadable Roman scrolls.
Dude, yes. It's gnarly. He
Super cool.
responded to a Nat Friedman tweet that was like, where is that? Starts with a P in Italy. I went to
Pisa.
it. No.
Palermo?
Portofino.
No.
Skin
Where
tone.
the fucking damn it.
God
Where,
damn
the whole
it.
thing got
where
destroyed.
Vesuvius was?
Damn it. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Facts don't matter. It'll come to me. But Luke deciphered like these ancient scrolls,
Oh,
like
the Greek scrolls. I think they were Greek.
No, they're Roman.
Oh, they
they're
were Roman.
Roman.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did decipher them. They were all burned up.
It'll come to me. Anyway, then he, kind of like built up some sort of expertise and notoriety is not the word because that's negative, but in a positive way, and then he now is part of this, and so there's 4 of them that they're being pictured here. But what was really funny is like Wired magazine, like, first of all, Kevin, come on, Kevin, what are you doing? Well, I don't think Kevin's involved for
Kevin Kelly?
argument of Kevin Kelly, the founder of Wired magazine. Wired magazine has become known for just kind of poo-pooing on a lot of
Being libtards, is that what you're trying to say?
yeah yeah, and I know Kevin is sympathetic to those ideals, but like it's off. A lot of the pieces are just completely off. Like they were just like shunning these guys, and instead I think it's like we should be celebrating what's happening here. So back to Catherine. This meme that your 20s don't matter is really a discussion topic that I think is really interesting.
I know that I personally was sort of like one-shotted by this for sure. Like when I
Is this a new thing we say? I didn't know that.
Well,
we
one
could say-
shot.
Yeah.
One shot. It is.
One-shotted.
The vernacular is.
One-shotted.
It's
Yeah, I like
used
that.
when people like take ayahuasca and like change their whole personality based on this one experience and kind of lose themselves.
Here's a good example of getting one-shotted. Do you remember watching? Wait, what was the name of the? Oh, do you remember watching The Newsroom?
Yes.
Remember the first episode of The
Yes.
Newsroom where he's just like, America isn't great, never was great,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he goes into
Did
the
see
spiel.
that.
Epic rant.
Epic
did see
rant.
that.
That's actually just fucking retarded. Actually, if you watch it back and think about it critically. But like me, when I watched that as like
I
an
was-
impressionable young kid, I was just like, everything I knew is wrong. America sucks. The West, and like I was one shotted by that for sure. Like I saw that. You take something in, you're like, oh my god, and then you just don't even think about it, and you just changes everything.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So possibly in a destructive
I
sense.
do remember that.
But the same thing happened to me with just this general idea of like I always bought into this idea of like, yeah, high school, whatever, go to college, find yourself, 20s, like just have fun, date a bunch of girls, like whatever, and like you don't have to like worry about
Bangarang, bro.
doing it. Yeah, and no, like I read this tweet and I was like, yeah, like I actually think I fucked up my 20s because like I wish I wish I grinded like a lot harder. I
You
wish
did
I
just at poker.
Eric disagrees.
no, even at poker, like I didn't grind. Right, like there was a point in time where I like had solved this game and I had a money printer.
You had $1 per hour that you can make, and
Yeah, and it was a lot of dollars per hour. And my brain was just like literally, I was just like, oh, the whole purpose of me doing this was just so I could have freedom. So I'm just gonna like go
I
to
do
the
remember
bar
seeing
and
you
drink
light
Guinness.
some money up
There
in
are a
some
lot of people
nightclubs
that
when we didn't know
perpetuate
each other.
this. Like I
fucking
used
stupid.
to like pay attention to what Gary Vee was saying because I think he has like a generally interesting message at times, but it can be, you know, I would love to talk to him. And like his whole thing is like experimentation, try, don't worry. Like I was 38 when I had any success at all in my life. Like you're fine. His main message is you have time. And there is truth to that. Do you believe that, Mr. Johansson?
I mean, my experience is going to be tainted by my upbringing. Like, I have a lot of privilege, right? So, like, when you say this kind of thing, I have to be empathetic to this view of, like, your 20s should be used to grind because that's when you can, like, make more money. Like, I view it completely differently. Like, your youth, they say youth is wasted on the young. Like, that's what you're talking about. Like, wasting your youth, like wasting your like glorious days where you can go experience and experiment and travel and love and like do all the stuff. When you're old, you can't do any of that. You can still make money. You're saying make money in those youth days.
No, it is not about make money. It is in a broader sense. I think about this. Like I think Armand said it best in this line that like you have time. That is, I think, the destructive idea. It's just like, oh, you have all this time. You have this like free stretch of years to just do whatever, and it's not that important. You can experiment. You can find yourself. You can do all this shit, whatever. Because like as you say, you're gonna get old and you won't have time to do any of this stuff. So do it now and experience it all and all that. And like I think there's elements of truth to that. But I also think there are destructive elements to that. Like I wish that I had a little bit more of a gun to my head. Like I didn't need like that much time and like that much freedom, you know. And I definitely fucked around. And I definitely had opportunities that I didn't seize, like that I could have if I like really buckled down. Because I kind of thought like what you did. I like bought into this, like, oh, like no, I'm supposed to like savor life and everything. But then it like kind of does get into like a deeper discussion on like, well, what does that mean to live? And you seem to be saying like, well, living means like traveling and having fun and all this
living means
stuff.
like it's like how you define living. And like this is a dogma in this, like what she's purporting is the same dogma, just like the different other side of the coin. Like the other side of the coin is like, no, live your life. She's saying don't live your life, grind.
I think it's like you have to ask yourself what trade you want to make. Like for example, like my choice was to travel a lot and date a lot and not, you know. Well, ironically, I settled down. I met the love of my life at 25 years old. At the time, I was like, oh, I've already had a lot of fun in my head. I felt older for whatever reason. We always, have you noticed, like you feel older than you actually
At least
are?
feel more mature than you
Like,
probably
especially
are.
in your 20s, you think you're more mature than you are in your teens. When you're 16, you think you're a 25-year-old man in your head. But like when I was a 25-year-old boy, I felt like a man. I was like, okay, I've met the love of my life. Like, this is it. Like, I'm going to do this. But even still, like, I wanted to extend my adolescence even after I met her. And I've been to places like Myanmar and Tanzania and, you know, South Africa and all these wonderful things that I would have done. I've been abroad 75, 80 times, right? Am I willing to trade that to have focused and compounded my efforts more? And as a 38-year-old man, I think there is, first of all, I've talked about, like, I've never experienced the feeling of regret, because I think that, like, regret is wishing you had done something differently with the information you had at that time, and I have absolutely none of that. I've never experienced that feeling yet. If I had a mentor, I've never had mentors. I've never had great mentors. I don't know if you guys have. I'm actually curious to hear if you have. But like a 38-year-old Armand sitting down with 23-year-old me would probably say, hey, man, I think you really have something great happening here, and you need to compound these efforts more and create more wealth today. Like, yes, traveling is awesome, and yes, all the things you're doing are great, but you can be free. You can be done forever. I could have been completely free a long time ago. A long, long time ago. Instead, I chose to
Get
to do a lot of what she's talking
transitory
about.
freedom earlier.
I literally, freedom lifestyle. I was like, I had a movement in my head. That was my idea. I mean, Nick knows this. Like, he's been my friend since those days of like freedom lifestyle. Like, that was my whole identity, right? And so, but freedom lifestyle comes at a cost. And I think if I had 30-year-old mentor Armand sitting down with 23-year-old, it would have been like, you can have some of both, but you need to invest more in like your capabilities that you have today to get ahead as fast as you possibly can. And you can have it all in the future from a position of leverage. And I'm happy with my position in life today. I'm so happy with it. I'm so grateful for it. I'm so blessed, but it could be better. It could be different. And I think that she's right in the sense that a little bit of commitment to a little bit of struggle and some sacrifice in your 20s can compound in ways that you couldn't even possibly imagine.
I understand
That's what I
you're
take
saying.
out of it.
I understand what you're saying. Like, at that time, you didn't understand the trade-off with the clarity that you understand it with as your 38-year-old
hindsight is
self.
2020 right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's other parts of what she's saying that are important too. Like, I think she's more speaking to like your 20s, your early to mid 20s, or when you have the most raw energy to put into something. Like, I know how much I grinded on the first business we started. Like, it was like, I feel like I had unlimited energy, mostly because there was a necessity to have to do things. But there's raw energy, and then there's also this time in your life where you have the biggest opportunity to be non-consensus, right? You're this new young person showing up on stage. There's all these things that have been done the way they've been done for whatever reason, and you show up and you're just like, I've never been taught these things, but it seems like we should rewire this a little shorter and make this faster and do it this way. It seems more efficient, and those are your biggest opportunities to like have an impact. And you know, I think for the most part, maybe this audience agrees with this, but like your ambition, you know, might be greater when you're younger. Like, ask your younger self what dollar amount you would have liked, and I bet you it's more than what you would say now. Like, now I'm like,
absolutely.
you'd be like, well, $1 billion sounds nice. I mean, we have kids in their 20s
$5
working
million
for us.
is a nightmare.
And it's a nightmare, Greg.
And $50 million is a nightmare.
Yeah, and they're like, I want to make $1 billion. They're talking like that now, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, and I get
Yeah.
that, because I'm like, yeah, when I was that young, my ambition was so much greater. I was willing to take so much more risk. And then you bring another part of our argument is like, you just don't have as much risk as like a single one-off person. You know, you can take some serious risk and throw it all in.
But hold on, like, it's not just a panacea. It's like, so you have this like enthusiasm and ambition and risk tolerance, but you don't have experience. You don't have like knowledge. Like, what's your probability of success of like generating that outcome as a 38-year-old versus a 20-year-old?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's
focused on success here, but I don't think this is so focused on success.
No, it's about the general like de-emphasizing of this period of time in your life.
Yes.
The general sort of like writing it off in a
Writing
sense
it off,
as like
yes.
a learning experience or
finding yourself.
finding right. That I think is the nuanced crux of this. It's not like, oh, you should grind. It's just like there's this common wisdom that this is like a throwaway period of your life.
Well,
I don't think that at all. First of all, I don't think anybody lives their 20s as a throwaway period.
No, I think a
I
lot of
think-
people
I
do.
think
They're
there's
like,
a deeper thing
yeah,
here.
no, I think a lot of
a
people
lot
do.
of people in our generation did. This is ultimately looking at the difference between the millennial generation and the Zoomer generation. This is what this is saying. It's like millennial generation was like freedom lifestyle at all costs. Don't tell me what to do. I'm
4-hour
finding
work week.
myself. 4-hour work week. Perfect. Perfect.
Oh
perfect
yeah, no,
example.
good call.
This next generation's like, you know what? I don't think I even need to go to college. I'm just gonna fucking go, and whoever I am today, I think it's good enough. And I may not have the experience, but I'm gonna figure it out.
Okay,
and
so
I'm gonna
I-
get shit done.
I
and
guess
it's
I
gonna
don't
be fine.
I don't understand that dynamic well enough at all to even comment. Like, I understand our upbringing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I see
what,
it.
What people
I
are talking
see it.
about here.
If you look at like the kinds of like kids right now that are going into like Y Combinator at like 21, they're just like dropping out, going all in, going all in, going all in, building and doing really cool shit and just like not wasting their time as much as we did. I think it's a real thing. I mean, there is definitely an aspect, and I think there's an underlying force actually, which is that the millennial generation came into society saying like, we're really fucked. Like 2008 happened. Everyone was just like, we were young and we were just like, okay, the world has changed. We got to get after it. It's going to be difficult to get a job. It's going to be difficult to make anything happen. It's going to be difficult to buy a home. Maybe I'll, have to wait a while. The next generation that came in is like, that's impossible. So I have to play the lotto. I have to go all in so early to create results and get what I want out of this life because most likely the cards are stacked against me. I don't think that's what she's talking about. That's what I'm seeing is that there's this deep like dissatisfaction with the way the world is, and the only way to get what you want out of it is to go all in.
I want to hear more about what like Steven's interpretation of like the 20s don't matter means, like as you interpret it, because like I'm obviously interpreting it incorrectly. Like I'm interpreting it to mean grind or find yourself, but that's not what you're saying. That the crux
So
is.
from my own personal experience, right? When I was like 23, I basically like hacked this like poker game. I figured out how to like just print money in this poker game. I had a buddy, I wrote like a software program for it, and I basically solved the game. And I was like 23 living in this Boston apartment, and I was making like $1,500 an hour playing poker. And at the time, my mindset was like, oh wow, like look at, I've made this money, but I don't need to make like a lot of money. Like what's really important right now is that I have my freedom, and that like I go out at night and I like go on these vacations and stuff, and I'm like, that's what it means to be young, and I'll find myself, and like I don't have to, and I like and I stopped. And in retrospect, like when I look back, I was just like, oh my God, you had a fucking kill shot, and you should have just like hammered that shit to no end and gone all in. And like I was like gonna start a blog, which at the time was like a thing people did. That sounds like funny now, but at the time, like being on the internet and starting a blog was like a weird thing. Like being like an influencer was not a thing that existed yet. And I like forewent like all of that opportunity because it was like, oh, I did the thing I was supposed to do, which is supposed like, oh, I like in my mind, the bar was like, can I find myself and explore and just like make memories? Because like I bought into this idea that like I'm going to be dead someday or on my deathbed. I'm going to look back and be like, wow, I wish I like traveled and shit in my 20s. But like, I think it's like an overly simplistic version of life. And I think like you're maybe equating this to me saying that like, oh, you should be like a corporate slave and just grind in the office. And that's not what I'm saying either. But I'm saying like, I bought into this idea that like I shouldn't be like killing myself to like do crazy shit or just like grind or like make money, be successful, because I was like, oh, well, the whole point of me being successful is so that I can go out to the bars and travel and shit. And I've already gotten there. In my mind, I was doing like the parable of the Mexican fisherman type thing. And I was like, oh, I already did it. I already have the beach. I already could go out to, but that was like very short-sighted. And I like undershot my potential a little bit. And I got caught up traveling, and I got caught up like chasing women and doing all this stuff. And like, I should have just like kind of crushed more. I should have been like the Doge kid who was just like, I'm going to just go all in and like interpret the Roman scrolls and do crazy shit.
Dude, I think that the grass is always going to be greener. You're going to find a reason to like look at the other side and be like, that would be nice if I was over there. I think if you had
Pompeii.
Oh, that's right.
Mount
That's
Vesuvius.
Mount Vesuvius. Yeah.
Mount Vesuvius. I think if you find yourself in a situation where you have like this opportunity to crush, and instead you choose to find yourself, then you probably should find yourself. And if you find it underwhelming that you haven't found yourself, then I think that's a problem that you haven't done the work in that other avenue of like finding yourself. Like I think
the
both.
funny thing about finding yourself is that's a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
It is, but it also takes work. Like it also takes like intention and like seeking, and it's not just something that you just like go to bars and get bottle service and find yourself. Like you have to like be intentional about either way, and I think both pursuits are noble. You're saying like which side of the coin's better? I think they're the same. Like I think when you're young, you have like a unique opportunity to do certain things. You should probably take those opportunities.
I couldn't agree with you more. That was what
but,
I believed.
Okay, but here's a different perspective. From the perspective of like compounding, right? Your traveling does not compound, right? Like maybe there's like a little bit of an effect, but like you're going to Bali when you're 22 and spending 3 months there doesn't really compound into your being like a great travel, like, enormous travel.
It does something else that might actually even be beyond compounding.
Steadfastly on this.
I think that what it does is it like it completely it widens your view to such a degree that you become such a bigger person and a more wise person.
Dude, like
that
guys,
for
like
you,
taking one trip to Bali is fine. Maybe it has some impact on your life, right? But like the impact of you like finding something that you like and pursuing that and crushing that shit and like being successful like early on and pushing that creates like a freedom effect for the rest of your life that is like massive compounding effects. And then you can do like a lot of shit later. Whereas like if you do like if
But I think Eric's saying like the way you do that at 25 is so different from the way you do that at 45. You won't go and backpack, and we did that. You did that. Like that's something that you can never ever get back.
And what I would say too is like to your point on like your perspective widening. I agree that your perspective widens, but like your idea of self narrows. Like you actually can find yourself with more clarity once you like remove all the externalities and like go on these kind of journeys. And then when you come back to real world, like you actually know which direction you want to go in versus like what direction you've been told to go in from a childhood, which is like next grade.
I mean, they do this in Europe. I'm sure you know because you're Swedish. But like in Sweden, like for example, they don't go to college immediately after high school. They take a year, 2 years, I forget what it's called, but they just travel. And they even receive some government like stipend in order to do so. It's literally part of the development of a human being. Once you turn 18, you are paid to be an adult and go see the world.
You definitely shouldn't have used travel as an example.
You guys, but you're not like I mean, I'm probably not communicating it well enough, right? I'm not saying don't like when I was in my 20s, like I traveled a fuck ton. It's not like I'm saying like don't travel. It's a more subtle thing about like the mental emphasis on like, yes, this is what matters.
Yeah.
Right? Like I could have crushed way harder than I did and also traveled like basically the same amount. It was a mindset difference.
We-
that
we
sort of.
agree.
This is exactly what I'm saying as well. It's the other side of the coin. What I'm saying is as well is not just go travel, because just going to travel doesn't actually narrow your focus into who your identity is,
Right.
which is what this person is talking about. The 20s are about, which is actually finding yourself. It's not about going to Bali for a fucking weekend. It's about actually finding yourself, which is not what everybody does when they travel. Like what I'm talking about is being very intentional about how you're spending this time. And what you're talking about is being very intentional about how you're spending this time. They're two sides of the same coin.
But when you say like finding yourself, like that's, I mean, finding yourself, I guess, is like kind of like a bit of a semantically overloaded thing where like anybody can just like interpret this in like wildly disparate ways.
But we would agree that like going to bottle service because that's what people do is not the way to find yourself.
I agree, and like again, like what I want to narrow in on is this idea that like there's like a lack of urgency. I think is the big thing that I bought in. Like there's a lack of like I bought into this idea that when you're young, there's a lack of urgency, and I think that is the key. Not that like you shouldn't be like experimenting or doing all this stuff, but the fact that it's just like it's not that urgent, man.
I think there's
you know,
something
you're
deeper.
young, and
I think there's something deeper. It's lack of urgency. I think it's her first sentence of the second. It's extended adolescence. So what does that mean? It means it's like this idea that you're okay without responsibility. I did everything in my power to not take on more responsibility because I wanted to be free. My number one value in life was freedom. And in hindsight, I wish I had taken on more responsibility more quickly. I think that's what it's about. It's about becoming a man or a woman as quickly as possible in the direction of finding yourself or in the direction of compounding your efforts as an online poker trader, whatever it might be. It's like, hey, I'm an adult now. I'm going to fucking go and figure this stuff out. And I'm not going to avoid stacking the responsibility of life because that ultimately is what it is to be a man. It's like the sooner you accept the responsibilities around you, the sooner you grow up. It's adulting. And adulting is something that people don't want to do. And extended adolescence is absolutely something that was perpetuated as like a positive thing through the 4-hour work week and many other, ideas that existed in our 20s.
Yeah, I guess that was an unintended side effect of that book, memeing around
Definitely.
like extended adolescence.
yeah, I read that book at the time.
Changed
it was
my
very,
life.
It was very
My life.
like when I was doing that, like that's what I was thinking of when I had like done this great thing, but I was like, oh, but the 4-hour work week, I've achieved the 4-hour work week. I should just do that.
And
like
is literally about the Mexican parable, work as
That's
little
exactly what
as
it is.
possible,
Yeah.
live the life that you want to live. But what's funny is when you don't stack responsibility early, it catches up to you.
Yes.
I agree. Like the
Right?
Mexican parable is true, but
But-
it's
but the-
also
But eventually the
dangerous.
fisherman...
It's also dangerous.
because eventually the fisherman's like, oh,
Oh, shit, I gotta go fishing again.
yeah. Or like, I need a new boat, or, things arrive, or my father's getting old, or I can't just be out here sitting on a boat for the rest of my life. I've got to take life on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what it was for me. It was like, okay, in high school, the parents got divorced. He's not going to provide. There's a mom who doesn't work and a severely handicapped brother who needs supporting. It was like, oh, we need a plan. Like we can't like just figure this out. And there was like a sense of urgency, and it was like, okay, what's the fastest way to make money? I'll take a sales job because those have unlimited commissions, and I'll use that cash to, start the first business. And I can't get stuck on a salary because I have to like eventually, transition to an owner, not an employee. And I think that the age at which you reach that realization, whether it's, hey, a couple $1 million, $3, $4, $5 million from poker is actually not enough for my entire lifetime and all my dependents. At whatever point you reach that, you might be like, oh shit, like I might need more than I thought. And
Something
that's
I've
where
been-
the responsibility part is a great
it's a
insight.
selfless thought.
Yeah,
Right.
it is. We have similar reasons
Right.
for grinding. Similar upbringing. Totally was similar for me. It was like, that's the way. That's what you have to do. You know.
And like those things can be very defining in a good way, like where you find yourself through those responsibilities, right? Like whether it's like, you know, you kind of define yourself as, okay, my job is to be somewhat of a caretaker or a provider. You know, you kind of find yourself there. I was watching this like Apple movie where they were talking about the greatest mathematicians peak in their 20s. They do their best work in their 20s. And like them putting themselves through that crucible is like their defining moment in which they find themselves like, what is the limit to my talent, to my opportunity? And so you could argue that by adding those, you know, extra responsibilities on earlier, you kind of accomplish both, right? You might achieve some success, but either way, you might find a way to define yourself that you actually like.
I think you might find yourself. Yeah.
Well, you bring on some interesting things I've spent a lot of mental effort on, which is like, how do you motivate somebody? Like you found intrinsic motivation through your extrinsic environment.
Yeah.
But how do you motivate somebody who's
Intrinsically.
Like, yeah, how do you motivate somebody intrinsically when their extrinsic environment is actually safe?
Yeah, I mean, like,
And something that I've thought about was like what motivated me was expectation. Like just maintaining a high level of expectation, which
high
is like
standard.
a high standard, which is like you will at least be this, you will at least be this, you will at least be this. Like you will be nothing less than this. And that to me, it's like almost more like a stick than carrot, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But like I'm wondering now, like as I'm an expecting father, like of a daughter who's like not gonna need anything.
Right.
Like how do I motivate this person? How do I
standards?
high standards?
But you know, I guess
No, sovereign child.
Yeah,
you
no
don't
rules.
have
no rules.
Flower girl.
I mean, you could find it in a different aspect of life. It's like, okay, you're going to be a kind, trustworthy, like noble person, and that's your standard. Not like you're gonna
Of course. I mean,
make this amount of money or
I would
whatever.
also like to uphold a lot of these things, like
Right.
have a high standard in a lot of categories. But like, I think that's what motivated me, is just like high expectations, high standards, and it was out of fear of disapproval, you know?
Right. Yeah, there was that too.
I mean, that's what Vivek went viral for, essentially, right? It's like, is that good? Like, should we have more of that in American society? This, like,
Oh yeah, that was an interesting.
we never talked
tweet.
about that.
That would have been a good discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good Von Deeper, actually.
Yeah. I mean, he upset a lot of people.
You think he got like fired for that?
I mean, he left Doge. Didn't
I
he?
mean, I will say,
I mean,
like,
he's running for governor.
Yeah.
I guess one advice for
Maybe
people in their
that's a cover
20s.
story.
Because?
I was gonna say, like, if you do happen to find, whether you mean to do it or not, if you find a way to make money, like in your 20s, you should take it for every penny it's got. And I remember I had someone even give me this advice right before I started my company, or as I was starting it, and I was like, I think it's gonna work, and I think here's the ROI. And he's like, holy shit. He was like, listen, let me tell you from someone who's like, you know, mid 40s, who's been through multiple businesses and only one or two of them have been good. He's like, you need to squeeze this for every single penny. And I mean literally every penny it's for. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'll do that. And like looking back, I was like,
it's squeeze it, but it's also invest it.
well, yeah, but like just
Because I squeezed, but I didn't. I was like, lifestyle money.
Squeeze and spend.
Yeah.
Squeeze and spend.
but you can do. But if
Hookers
you have
and
a,
blow.
if you're making $1,500 an hour, you know,
I don't do drugs, Steven.
Squeeze and blow, you said?
Squeeze and blow.
I heard
Not that kind of party, bud.
I heard a quote from a former soccer player. His name is George Best. He's from like
Love George Best.
He's from like the 50s.
He was
or
an
something.
animal.
He said, "Spent all my money on women and drugs, and the rest I squandered."
Man, you player.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah,
Legend.
yeah.
all right, boys, we're getting long in the drinks, long in the tooth.
That was good. That was deep.
Only 2.5 hours.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
should probably edit out that first portion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We'll put a timestamp. It's
Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for everyone in the chat for joining us. Love to see you guys in there. Yeah, join us next week, Wednesday, 5 p.m. PST. We'll be back live on YouTube. Anyone out? We're back. We've had a good streak of everyone
Well,
being
I
in.
will just put out the bat signal that at any time I might be, getting ready to deliver a baby.
Okay. You're on
call.
In the next month.
Yeah,
so,
both of you guys are going to be on call in March.
We're back to back.
Guess I'll
So
let that slide.
Okay. That's one acceptable excuse.
might miss one or two.
It's your best excuse so far.
Okay.
All right, guys.
We should bring our babies on the show. What do you think?
Probably
about
not.
that? Why not? Just hang out, do a little bottle feeding.
I can't see how that could
I'm gonna
possibly go
breastfeed.
wong.
Yeah. Are you gonna wear the De Niro?
Be like that Peter Griffin.
Boob? You want to milk me, Greg? You want to milk
Nick's trying to end the show, I think, guys.
Oh, really? I'm still talking.
Can't
Yeah, let
imagine
it
why.
rip.
You can end it whenever you want.
All right, guys. Love you lots. See you next week. See ya.